Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my Karen sister loses it when I tell her I don't want kids, I want money. My sister has a 5-month-old baby. Her and her boyfriend are not struggling financially, but their standard of living has very much decreased since giving birth. They can afford the necessities, but they can't go on vacation, can't go out to eat, and can't afford a babysitter. They also just moved into a cheaper apartment. My mom has been asking my sister and the baby to move in with her so that they can save money. My sister said no. For more context, my sister's boyfriend makes a little less than minimum wage. He only works part-time at a restaurant to focus on creating his music. When my sister announced they were trying for a baby, my mom was really worried, and she's still worried, about their financial situation. My sister is the primary income source for their household, and my mom has been giving them some money every month. I make a little more than my sister, but I don't have kids. So last night, all of us came together for dinner. My sister kept asking me when I'm going to have kids, and I said I don't plan on having any. She said I'll change my mind. I'm almost 30. I said I probably won't, and she kept pressing me on why. I finally just said, I don't want kids, I want money. And she got really quiet. When dinner was over, she left a voicemail to my mom crying about how I attacked her, and my mom is now mad at me. My mom wants me to apologize to my sister. To be clear, I do think my sister is in a nightmare situation, but I would have said I wanted money even if she didn't have a baby. I've always thought I'm not meant for parenthood, and I'd rather just be the cool, fun aunt that travels a lot and buys big presents for my nieces and nephews. I didn't mean to insult her, and I've never once commented on her financials or relationship because it's not my place. Am I the jerk, and should I apologize? Not the jerk. This is one of those things where context matters. If you were sitting at dinner and just randomly blurted out, I don't want kids, I want money, that would be a jerk thing to say to your sister. But when she starts asking when you're gonna have kids, and especially when she refused to drop it, she's asking for a response like this. She asked and you answered. She doesn't like your answer. That's on her for pressing you for one in the first place. You didn't attack her. You upset her by being honest, and that's not your fault. Not the jerk, and I don't think you owe her an apology, but a conversation is a good idea. It sounds like she's actually pretty upset herself about her finances, and your response touched a nerve. Maybe start with something like, hey, it wasn't my intention to offend you in any way, and I'm honestly confused as to why this upset you so much. I gave you my honest answer after being pressured, and I can't help feeling like maybe this is really about something else. Am I the jerk for belittling my sister and saying she shouldn't demand her husband help with their baby at night? My husband and I went through surrogacy options and had our son 4 months ago. We were thrilled when my sister, who's 31, announced her pregnancy, and we found out that we would be having kids very near the same time. Our niece was born a little over 2 months after our son. My situation and my sister's closely mirror each other. Our husbands both work typical 9-to-5s with 30 to 45-minute commutes. My sister is a stay-at-home mom, and I do freelance work from home. For the first 2 weeks after our son was born, the first of which my husband took off of work, we would both take partial night shifts. Once I felt like I had at least some of my bearings on parenthood, I offered to take over completely on weeknights while he does mornings before work plus weekends. It's a collaborative process, and that breakdown of parenting just made sense to me. My husband was the one leaving our home to work every day. He was the one who had to be up by a specific time and make a drive. At 4 months, we no longer have this obstacle anymore. And to be honest, I kind of miss the sweet, quiet bonding time those extra night feeds provided now that he's settled onto a nice sleep schedule and usually only wakes up once. Still, I think we got it down to almost the perfect science before we exited the newborn stage. My sister, on the other hand, is very much still in that phase and struggling. This has been a recurring problem for her from the beginning. She has been coming to me saying she's scared she's going to fall asleep holding the baby, that her husband won't help her with the night feeds, etc. I tried to give her tips since I've been through it. I suggested she let her partner take over in the evenings, 6 to 9 p.m., so she can go to bed early and catch a few more hours, nap when the baby naps, etc. She shot down everything, saying that wouldn't work for them, and that she just needed her partner to do some of the night feedings. I reminded her that her husband is the one commuting in the mornings and falling asleep while driving was a very real possibility, and that I had lived through it and so could she. I then offered to watch her daughter for a few days so she could catch up on sleep. She took major offense to both of these things. She said I was belittling her experience and acting like I was a better parent. She said I couldn't truly empathize with her or give her valuable tips since she had been pregnant and I hadn't, and that me offering to watch my niece just felt like me saying she needed help raising her own daughter. My intentions were definitely not malicious, and I'd like some outside perspective here. Am I the jerk? Update. I have apologized because I was definitely the jerk for those comments, even if I didn't intend to be. My sister accepted said apology, and hopefully moving forward, I can truly be the listening ear she needed and not someone who offers solutions that weren't asked for, especially when our circumstances aren't that similar. My husband has clearly been taking on many more parenting duties than hers, and she and my niece both deserve better than that. Full offense. Yes, you're the jerk. Your situations do not closely mirror each other. Her experience has been very different, especially considering her body is still recovering from pregnancy and giving birth, which is painful and completely exhausting. Did she have a C-section or natural birth? Did she have a tear, stitches? These details matter. She could also be struggling with PPD, something you do not have to worry about. I don't say this to belittle you. I say this because you're belittling her. You're turning this into a competition, and it's clear you do think you're the better mother. How arrogant. It's normal to expect your husband to help with night feedings. Just because you have not needed that help, likely because you didn't give birth and have absolutely no idea what that's like, does not mean you get to pass judgment on your sister for having different needs. Every baby is different, even siblings with the same parents can be entirely different. If you actually want to help her, stop comparing yourselves and stop acting like she's doing something wrong. Her baby and her schedule are her life and not yours, and they are not like yours. Stop that. Be supportive and kind. Be a good sister. My husband made our nanny quit. I, 29 female, am married to my husband, who's 34, and we have a nanny who's 21. We hired our nanny over a year ago when I was pregnant with our daughter, while I had a toddler who was 2 at the time, who's now 4, and I couldn't do much work, and my husband couldn't be with me all the time due to his work. She's amazing with our girls. She has helped me so much during the last few months of my pregnancy, and especially postpartum. None of my friends are pregnant yet, so they couldn't always help me, and I don't have mom, nor am I close with my mother-in-law. I didn't have anyone to confide in like that. Our nanny has so much experience and was so amazing to me. She made me amazing soups and stews from her culture that were made to help pregnant women. It was amazing. She would make my toddler have quiet time, which was even more amazing. She's always on time, she's very clean, an amazing cook, really fun with the girls, and a good teacher as well. Our nanny and my husband only met once, and that was during our Zoom meeting, and they have never met after that. Since she gets here after my husband leaves and leaves before he comes back, they've never crossed paths before. 3 weeks ago, me and husband got really sick, so my husband stayed home from work. Due to how sick I was, I forgot to relay this information to our nanny. Our baby has been extremely clingy the past few months and will cry if left alone. I usually bring her in the bathroom with me, but the bathroom downstairs is much smaller, so our nanny can't do that as comfortably. She decided to just start using the bathroom with the door cracked open and would give our baby a toy outside so she's not tempted to come in but can still see her. I'm aware of this and I'm fine with it since it's only us girls at home. While my husband was home, unbeknownst to her, she went to use the bathroom with the door open and my husband saw her. She completely freaked out and apologized profusely. I had no issue and apologized to her that I forgot to let her know my husband was home. Everything was fine, but I sensed she was extremely uncomfortable, which I kept apologizing for. The next few days, my husband started going to work late and coming home early, to which there would be more interactions between him and the nanny. When I hired our nanny, one of the things she told me was that she wasn't comfortable with adult men in the house, which was not a problem since our arrangement didn't allow it. When he would see her, he kept trying to make personal conversations with our nanny redirected to our girls. Last week, she spoke with me and reminded me of the agreement we had, which was no adult men in the house and that she was uncomfortable. I completely understood where she was coming from. I spoke with my husband and he apologized to her and me. The next day he went to work normal, then 2 days later he told me he had to work from home since his office is getting worked on. We talked to our nanny and my husband told us that he would stay upstairs the whole time, which worked for the rest of the week. Monday, he accidentally forgot his coffee and went to get it while our nanny was there. He was asking her personal questions. He asked her how her weekend was, which she responded, good, and then he had the nerve to ask her if she saw her boyfriend. She responded no and that she didn't have one. He went on to ask her what type of men she was into. I was downstairs quickly to stop it. I apologized to our nanny. When we got upstairs, I yelled at him for talking to her like that and reminded him what he agreed to and that he was to stay away from her. I noticed he was monitoring the nanny cam a lot and he told me that he was just checking in on the girls. Yesterday, I had a really bad stomach ache because I'm lactose intolerant and my husband accidentally put whole milk in both of our coffees. I asked him to go in the day with the nanny and lock up the door after that. Unbeknownst to me, he started asking her what type of men she was into and was telling her how he's dated black women before and is into them. Our nanny is black and I'm not. He also jokingly grabbed her shoulders to pick her up and move her aside to get to the fridge. Why didn't he just say excuse me is beyond me right now. Last night, our nanny tried calling me, but I was sleeping because I took some medicine for my stomach. I woke up today to see a text from her that she was quitting because she didn't feel comfortable coming to the house anymore. I texted and called her and she hasn't picked up. I'm beyond angry at my husband and I took some time to calm down, but really I can't. I don't think I can replace her and truly I don't want to. I don't want to start this all over again. We know each other so well. We have inside jokes. We have memories that I can't recreate. She is someone I have felt comfortable enough to confide in with everything. She's been with me throughout special moments with the kids and even for me. I'm not upset with her at all and completely understand why she's shaken up by all of this, so I've accepted giving her some space. I just really wasn't prepared for this. Edit. First, for people saying our nanny is wrong because my husband lives here and should be comfortable. She came highly recommended from a woman from our church and we wanted her. She gave us her requirements and one of them was that she's uncomfortable working with adult men in the house. We agreed, including my husband. Whenever he has finished work early, he stops by somewhere else to work or hang out until Nanny leaves. Nanny isn't mentally ill for not wanting men in the house. She's explained to me that she's had issues with husbands making weird advances or sometimes wives accusing her of things, so to avoid problems, she just doesn't want them in the house. Second, I still have a nanny because I'm now trying to work. Third, I do not like my husband, nor do I condone his behavior. We have had issues since he became useless to our family. My needs weren't grave when I was pregnant. I just needed certain foods, medicine, and help with showers, but he wouldn't help with anything, and this was with our first kid. And the second one, we got a nanny. I've thought about divorce, but I kind of need his money. If it was just me, I would have divorced him already, but I have kids, so I'm aware of what he was trying to do. I have talked to and scolded him. Fourth, I usually make our coffees, but he made them yesterday because baby kept me up all night and he was home. I put the drink in glass containers with labels that it would be easy to mix up. It also tasted the same. Update. I didn't marry my husband for the money. We dated when I was in college and then he proposed. We loved each other a lot and everything was great in our marriage. When I got pregnant with our first, it was good. He was helpful. Then somewhere along the line, he just started becoming distant. I always handled everything in the house since I didn't work, but even in the third trimester, he refused to help and would always say he's tired, but would play basketball outside or video games. He started working later and it caused some problems. We got couples counseling and it fixed some things and we were pretty good. Hence the second kid happened. The second pregnancy was really bad. I mean, at my first trimester, I was in and out of the hospital, and when at home, walking or standing was really hard, so I would need help getting to the shower. And things like that, or my medication, which he didn't help with and avoided me. So there would be days where our daughter would only eat leftover snacks from our room because I couldn't move. If you asked him where the cleaning supplies are in the house, he wouldn't know because he's never cleaned it before. And he would buy food on the way home and eat. And then when he'd get home, he'd say that he forgot and offer to go get some, knowing that where we live, it would have to be a 20-minute drive. And by the time he'll get home, the baby would already be sleeping. People who said our nanny was being prioritized over my husband is ridiculous. My husband isn't trapped in the house, and we didn't move our lives around the nanny. The hours she's here is when my husband is at work. He chose to avoid seeing her, and that's why if he finished early, he wouldn't come home. What a jerk your husband is. Oh Lord, reading this was pretty infuriating. What a massive jerk your husband is. OP divorcing is really the best solution at this point. Also, why is the sitter getting trashed by some of the commenters? She's completely innocent. I broke up with my fiance and he says he'll call the police if I take our cat with me when I move. Me and my ex found a kitten in the backyard back in June. I've been paying for all of her food, litter, toys, and carrier, and I'll be paying for the vet appointments too in a week, for the entire time that we've had her. I have proof and store receipts of me paying for all of her things. He hasn't paid a single cent for her. He never has money and has had 3 different jobs since we moved in together in March. I'm leaving him and he says I can't take her with me. He does not clean her litter box or feed her, and I have video proof. He also trashes the room and never cleans it, and I have video proof. If I left her with him, she would be alone all day for 5 days a week. For the 2 days that he is home, all he does is play video games all day. He says if I bring the cat with me when I move, he will call the police. What can I do? Update. So on my last post, a lot of people mentioned that I should make sure I wouldn't be responsible for the lease when I move, and maybe I should have explained the situation more. Me and my ex rented a room in a house. We have a live-in landlord who is pretty lax and another roommate. He's very understanding, and I would not have been responsible for the lease after moving out, even if my ex did not pay. I also remember someone else asking how it was possible that I have proof of him not doing things. I basically had blog videos of the days and the timestamps of the litter box not being cleaned, and me cleaning them up, and text messages and videos of me having conversations with him about how I'm the only one taking care of her, and him admitting it on camera and then in text. That was the proof that I had. Today, my ex moved out. When I made my last post, he said he was going to stay and pay rent without me, but before the month was up, he decided to move back in with his parents. Today, his whole family came to the house to take his things into a U-Haul. His father came at me, going off at me, which I have video of, and his mother came into the room and took my cat's cat tree that the landlord gifted to me. That's fine, because I've already ordered the exact same one and it's gonna get here in a few days. They're insane people, and I'm so glad to have them out of my life. The cat is with me. I took her to the vet the other day and got her vaccinations and got her chipped and registered in my name, and when my ex found out, he was very mad, but he would not have been able to afford $581 anyway. My ex also said that he was going to take all of my things back that he bought for me when we first started dating, like my Xbox and my TV and my headset, but I flat out refused, and I told him that I legally do not have to give those things back, and he did not try to fight me on those because he already has his own Xbox and TV. So that's the update. I have my cat and I have all my things, and he's out of my life for good until I have to take him to court to fix the whole front bumper and hood of my car for crashing into a dining room table chair on a highway when I let him drive my car home from work. That's a whole nother story. Am I the jerk for demanding that my husband pays half of the takeaway food we order? My husband, 40 male, and I, 35 female, have very different jobs. Basically, I make double than what he does, and he argues that I should pay for takeaway food, especially because I'm the wife and I should be the one to cook. Therefore, if I cannot cook, then I should make up for it by paying for takeaway, since he already shares the split bill for food, groceries, and rent. To give you a little bit of context, I've just taken on a new role at the start of this month as a head of a department with 6 new members of staff and a lot of loose ends to tie from previous leadership. We both wake up at 4:30 a.m., and while he gets home at around 3:30 p.m., I find myself arriving around 5:30 p.m. on a light day. His job involves food processing, and while it is a labor process, when he leaves his workplace, that's the end of the day for him, whereas I come home and continue working from home, including weekends, until around 9 p.m., when I just pass out as I'm too tired. For him, home time means 90% being on his phone or laptop, watching videos and playing games, making coffee and smoking cigarettes. I'm not going to lie and say he never helps. He does clean the bathroom and hoovers occasionally, once a month, and does the dishes, not without complaining though. Now it has come to a point where a few months ago, while he had one too many drinks, he told everyone at the table that he was investing all of his money into my backside. This is when I started downloading every single receipt for grocery, phone bills, rent, Uber drives, takeaway, holiday accommodations, everything, all paid for by me. His argument is that some of those trips were things that I wanted to do or see, which is why I never reproached anything to him. However, the fishing trips that he wanted so much also came out of my own pocket, and I never asked him a dime for it. Last month, as we were mostly on holiday, he only contributed worth around $200 towards monthly expenses with food, rent, bills, which again, I did not complain about, as I knew that he wasn't paid for most of that month. But now, once he's working, he's refusing to give me anything that is beyond rent, bills, and groceries, stating that I'm the woman of the house and it's my job to do the cooking. I told him that I am spread thin these days until everything is more streamlined with everything at work, and that maybe he could cook every now and then or heat some ready-made food, microwave or oven. But he asked me what was the point of him getting married if he was going to do the cooking himself. So, am I the jerk for wanting the bills to be shared equally if both of us are eating? Also, not one single time when I asked him about ordering did he mention the fact that I would have to pay for all of it. In certain instances, he was even the one asking me to order food. Edit. For those wondering why we have separate finances, it's because whenever he had access to money, he just spent it on all sorts of fishing gear. Also, for those wondering why I'm still with him or what I get out of this marriage, it's simple. I love him. I suggested counseling, but he laughed in my face, saying I'm crazy and he doesn't need someone else to tell him what to do when he already knows what he wants. I will suggest the 1/3 to 2/3 split for all shared bills though. Not sure what to do about holidays and other expenses. I feel that he will still expect me to pay for those, so we'll need to sit down and have a long conversation about expectations. Not the jerk, but why did you marry him? I would separate finances immediately. Don't pay for anything for him anymore. If you order food, order only for yourself. He can find out himself how to get food. If someone ever would tell me that they are investing all their money into my backside, honestly, I'd be gone. Especially if I make more money than them, but also if I'm earning less. It would be too disrespectful in my eyes. Am I the jerk for saying I won't pick up my niece from school anymore if my brother and sister-in-law keep acting like this? Both of my brothers rely heavily on our family. Me, 24 female, my mom and my dad, for childcare, due to passings on the other sides of their family, etc. None of us mind. We all adore their kids and love spending time with them, but you give them an inch and they take a mile. They asked for an extra day a week. My parents said they were sorry, but they didn't think they could handle it, so they started on the, but we can't afford childcare. It's such a shame our kids might have to do without things they like because we have to spend more on childcare. Bear in mind, one family brings in $130,000 a year. The other brings in around $80,000 to $90,000 a year. Childcare is expensive, sure, but they're also both very financially comfortable. I'm picking up my niece, from the family earning $130,000 plus, from school for a couple days because their other childcare plans fell through and they're unable to. I don't mind, I adore her, but she's definitely a lot of work. I don't have my own kids, so after a few hours, I'm tired. It gets to be a lot, and I definitely enjoy my peace when she's gone. They're now dropping hints to me that they're exhausted. They don't enjoy the school run in the mornings, and essentially, they're trying to get me to agree to having her sleep over tomorrow night and again on Tuesday night, which is a ton more work. It means I have to be up a good hour earlier for work, and I'll be late to work due to having to drop her off at school, which is 20 minutes in the opposite direction to my office. I told them if they didn't stop, they would have to figure out alternative arrangements for the school run. They're fuming, saying I would eventually leave my niece confused, upset, and alone at school because I can't be bothered to pick her up. Obviously, I would never leave my niece on her own at school, but to be honest, I don't enjoy it when she stays over. She takes a lot of energy, and I enjoy my own routine and time in the evenings. I know if I ever have kids, that'll change, but for now I don't have kids and I don't want them. I feel like they just take and take and take. They never pay for after-school clubs or breakfast clubs. If they want a night away, they always expect free babysitting from me. I've watched one of my nieces before, needed a lift afterwards, and my sister-in-law just called a taxi for me and expected me to pay for it. They always say they owe me one, but what can they owe me? When I babysit at their houses, I take my own dinner and snacks. The most I have is water. I never get paid, I don't have my own kids, and even if I did, they'd be too tired to babysit, no doubt. I just feel a bit annoyed that they expect so much from me when I'm 24 and trying to live my own life. Not the jerk. Their whole argument is that childcare is expensive, but they want you to pick up childcare responsibilities that you aren't comfortable with for free. You already have a job and you're helping out where you can. If they want you to babysit as well as do the school run, ask to be compensated for it. Likelihood is, dependent on audacity, that they'll probably stop asking and just be grateful for the school run help. Paid for babysitting isn't as attractive as free family owing family babysitting. My Karen ex demands I pay child support for a kid that's not even mine. My sister is on her side. Some years ago, I dated a girl. The relationship was bad. She was very controlling and she mistreated me. It ended up really bad and we broke up. I kept going on with my life, and after some years, I got a decent job, enough to solve all of my needs, have a comfortable life, and make some savings. The thing is, a couple of months after getting my job, my ex contacted me. She first asked me to talk, and I believed that she may want to reconnect or something, but she showed up with a 5-year-old, claiming that he was my son and demanding that I pay child support. I didn't believe her, but the kid's age matched the time that we cut contact. I got advice from a lawyer, a friend of mine, to try to solve this out of court. I offered to take responsibility, pay all of the costs, and be an active part of the kid's life, only after taking a DNA test. Everyone was okay with this, except for my ex. She acted offended and demanded to just give her the money that she deserved. She used all the excuses she could. She even contacted my family and told them I was trying to avoid taking responsibility of my kid. When she ran out of excuses and the DNA test was finally done, surprise, surprise, I'm not the father. She was so mad with the result, and she cried about the money, saying it was unfair and she deserved it, but she didn't accomplish anything. Moving on to the last week, there was a little party at my parents' house. My brother, a friend, and I were talking, and my brother started to joke about the situation with my ex. My friend and I started to joke about it too. Some of our comments were a little dark and bad, but we were far away from the rest of the people. Literally, we were on the opposite side of the house, and nobody else could hear us. At least that's what we thought. We were laughing like crazies when my sister appeared very angry and she pushed me against the wall. She spied on us and heard our conversation, and she was really mad. She started to yell at us about how horrible people we were for making fun of a poor woman. A few hours later, when the party ended, she asked me to go to the kitchen with our parents, and she started to say how awful I was for the previous situation. Apparently, my ex had been in contact with her, and she believed her version, and that was her way to have an intervention. My brother and I were like, "Are you serious?" when she started to say how I forced my ex into being a single mother, and that I have the moral obligation to help her. My dad only said that maybe we were being too cruel making jokes about her, but that I wasn't responsible for her kid. My mom then surprised all of us when she said, "Even if the kid is not yours, you are making more than enough money to support that kid. You should have helped her." Since then, I've been receiving texts. My dad and my brother are on my side, saying I'm not responsible for the kid, but my sister is telling me how horrible I am for ruining their lives. My mom only said, "It's your decision, and I respect it. I'm just very disappointed that you ended up being so selfish." I'm aware that she doesn't deserve my money, and I'm not planning to give her any, but the constant harassment of my sister trying to guilt me, it's just exhausting. Tell your sister if she's so concerned, she should give your ex money, since she has as much to do with conceiving that baby as you did. It's not just that, but she also clearly cheated on him while they were together, and then she tried to scam him into claiming that the child was his, so she doesn't deserve a penny from him. You're the jerk. I know this opinion won't be popular, but hear me out. You're obviously a dude, and you made it clear that you make a lot of money. Big surprise there with the pay gap and whatnot. Guys can basically walk into anywhere and get hired on the spot. With that in mind, this is your ex. She at some point meant something to you. Now she's asking you for help and you refuse to help, even though you can't afford to. You're no better than Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. Men with too much money and no desire to help others are not making the world a better place. Your sister is right that you are heartless. This is why I never agreed to paternity tests. I live a good life and have multiple sources of income through child support through multiple men and my unemployment due to my social anxiety. Is there a chance some of these men might not be the fathers? Sure, but at the end of the day, they are manning up and helping provide for kids who need them. I can't wait for paternity tests to be outlawed. You mess around, you will find out. You want the reward of what we can offer, but refuse to support us when we need help. This is why I don't feel bad about the $60K a year I bring in off guys like you. Somebody's got some issues. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex? Please let us know. I think that last commenter is the biggest jerk of them all, but that ex is a close second. Why not go after the real baby daddy for child support? Am I the jerk for sending my son to school with less food and explicitly telling him not to share with his best friend? This situation began a year ago, and it blew up in our faces last week. My son, Gregory, is 13 years old. He just began the 8th grade. His friend, Peter, is also 13, and he began the 8th grade also. Gregory and Peter have been friends since elementary school. Last year, I noticed that Gregory would be ravenously hungry after school every single day. He would come home and eat a frozen dinner or something, and then help himself to seconds at dinner time. I chalked this up to him being a growing boy, and I let it go. Something about this situation was nagging at me though, and while Gregory wasn't clear about why at first, he eventually came clean. Peter was being sent to school every day with no lunch. It looks to me like a typical case of neglect and unfit parents. The one time that Gregory went to their house, he came home with comments about it smelling really bad and Peter's parents locking themselves in the garage for hours. Feeling bad for Peter, I decided to discreetly begin giving Gregory more food each day, just about doubling all of his food. Over time, I became less discreet and began packing a separate lunch for Peter. I was never thanked for this by anyone, but I knew Peter was eating the food that I sent. This year, things are different. Money is tighter for personal reasons, and frankly, with how expensive things are, I've decided not to spend exorbitant amounts of money supporting someone else's kid. I set Gregory down and told him that I would be packing him one lunch, which is for him and him alone. I made it extremely clear. Do not share with anyone, and this includes Peter. Gregory followed my instruction until one day last week I got a phone call from Peter's mother. She was livid that I had cut Peter off without a single word. I asked her when it became my responsibility to feed her son, and she responded that if she had known I wasn't sending Gregory to school with too much food, she would have handled it herself. I asked if she remembered why I began sending him to school with 2 lunches in the first place, and she hung up on me. I feel conflicted. I know I'm having my kindness thrown back in my face, but did I approach this situation incorrectly? I'm thinking you are about 50-50 here. It's understandable that you can't take on the burden of feeding Peter, but you didn't mention that you contacted anyone at the school and made them aware of the situation. They have people who deal with this type of stuff. That's the part of you that is the jerk. I was thinking you're the jerk for not having reported this to the authorities already, but the school administration would be a good plan too, especially when OP's son said that the friend's parents locked themselves in the garage for hours. This is backwards. Where's the blame on Peter's actual mom or the school counselors? How is this somehow only OP's problem? This sub is a mess, blaming OP when she's the only one who stepped up. No good deed goes unrewarded. I hate to say you're the jerk in this situation, but you are. Not for how you handled the mother, but because as far as Peter himself knows, you did cut him off without a word. He's the only one who suffered here. And while you're correct that it's not technically your responsibility and your family absolutely needs to come first in terms of tighter finances for any reason, yes, you did handle this incorrectly. Everyone sucks here except the kids. Kids going hungry is everyone's business, and he was relying on you. You make no mention of trying to contact anyone about this or trying to find another solution. You just cut off his access to food. If you can't afford it or don't want to feed this kid, that's your prerogative. But then you need to reach out to those who can. You talk to the school district, you talk to the PTA, you talk to whoever you need to. You don't just turn a blind eye to a kid going hungry and say, "Not my kid, not my problem." For all you know, that lunch was the only meal he was getting every day. Why didn't you reach out to his parents ever? This is your son's best friend, and it sounds like you don't know them or have any idea what their home life is like at all. Why didn't you reach out to the school to see what low-income support they might have to make sure that this kid didn't go hungry? I'm really disheartened to see how many people here have said not the jerk and that it isn't your problem. You haven't made any effort to see if this kid is neglected or if the family is just extremely poor. You're not the jerk for not being able to afford to feed a kid that's not yours, but you are the jerk for washing your hands of the situation completely and making your kid cruelly withhold food from his best friend. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for how they handled this or not? Please let us know. No good deed goes unpunished. Always remember that. My long-lost daughter is demanding I pay for her college. It's been one heck of a month, so some things I say might not even make sense. I, 40 male, recently found out that I have a kid who we'll call Jane, who's 18. I wasn't convinced at first, but everything checks out. When she came to me, she told me that she just wanted to get to know her father. I wasn't really interested in a relationship, but I felt it would be cruel and unnecessary to deny her this. We talked for a while, and I didn't really say much, but it was interesting. So after we talked for a while, I asked her about her mother, Grace, who's 40, and she gives me her number. I really didn't want to have to call her, but I needed answers. So Grace and I decided to meet up at our local coffee shop. We have some small talk for a while before I ask her why she never told me. Silence. I ask again. Silence. I ask a third time, and she told me that she just didn't want anything to do with me and wanted to get back at me. I point out that all she did was deprive her kid of a father. I ask her when did she tell Jane? She says at age 12. So I get confused, and I'm wondering why she only contacts me now. So I ask her why. Grace says that she was angry that I wasn't present in her life. We talk some more about life before we say goodbye and go our separate ways. I don't ask Jane why she didn't call sooner because she was a hurting teenager and that's life. So Jane and I spent the next week bonding. Then she sits down and asks to talk. I say sure and I sit down. Then she goes on to explain about how difficult her life was living in a single-parent household and how money was always tight. Long story short, she asks me to pay for her university fees. Now, I'm well off enough to pay for it without struggle, so I asked to see her grades, and to be truly honest, they weren't very good. Not bad, but nothing to give a second look. I tell her that I'll think about it, and she says thank you. So here's where I might be the jerk. I don't want to pay for the fees because, in reality, she's just a stranger with my DNA, and I feel like Jane might just be using me. I mean, she's had 6 years to start a relationship with me, and is only doing so now that she needs money. I just want to wash my hands clean of her and Grace and move on with my life. I don't want Jane to think I'm her financial lifeline or anything like that. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit to add some stuff because of the comments. 1. I did a DNA test. It was what she wanted me to do to prove herself. 2. Child support laws are different in my country in the sense that A. You can't claim unclaimed child support if you had the option to claim it. B. Child support can't be settled after 18 unless the father knowingly disappeared, and that would take months to process, let alone prove. 3. Jane had the ability to contact me. I don't know how much influence her mother had on her choice, but I do know that I was a dial away. 4. I was never mad at Jane for not contacting me. I knew that she was a hurting teenager who doesn't know her father and could be scared to do so. I was confused in the moment. Not the jerk, but neither is Jane. Grace is a tremendous jerk to both of you. I do encourage you to seriously consider contributing to Jane's university expenses. Not to say you should or should not contribute, just seriously and honestly consider it. Think about her position. No father in her life, and a mother who won't answer any questions she's had for the first 12 years. Then who knows what context Grace gave when she finally did tell her. I'll bet she never said, I told your father about you because I wanted to spite him and I didn't care what effect that had on your childhood, despite that being the truth. Instead, she undoubtedly made you into the bad guy. Jane had no way of knowing better, and you should be sympathetic to that. I don't think you're a jerk no matter what you decide. Just don't do anything to spite Jane. She's had enough of that already. There's no reason OP should need to feel sympathetic or be a jerk for not being sympathetic here. Jane, while yes is his biological daughter, is really a stranger and only really reaching out for cash. This is my view. I'm also forced to wonder how much contact Jane will keep up after getting a payout. It's pretty crazy to ask for that kind of money only a week after meeting. Not the jerk. Best options are, all I can give you right now is this amount, or I'm sorry, things may have been different if I had known I had someone's college to save for, but I have not prepared for that expense. If she takes out loans, which it sounds like it's likely if he doesn't agree to help for a large portion, he can always see if she sticks around and actually seems to want to get to know him without the option of major financial support, and then choose to pay off some portion of her loans when they are due down the line, assuming she continues to make an effort when the possibility of money isn't a factor. If he says, all I can give you right now is this amount, or I'm sorry, things may have been different if I had known I had college to save for, she will either react by cutting contact because she was using him and got a no and that's the end of it, or she will stay in contact if she also genuinely wanted to get to know him. If she stays in meaningful contact and doesn't make a habit of asking for money or favors, then maybe he'll help her with her loans down the line. Once she's no longer a stranger who may or may not be reaching out just for a money grab, then he'll be able to have time to see whether her intentions were mostly good, whether there's a bigger place to be had in each other's lives, and can get to know her or find out her true colors without the pressure of that expectation hanging over them. Alternatively, I don't think it would be unreasonable to just gently refuse and cut contact if OP really wants to. Her mother had ample time and opportunity to include him in and prepare him for the responsibility, and she chose not to. While there's a lot of room to roll with the situation and see if there's any chance to make up some of the lost time and bond with her, ultimately her mom made the decision to cut him out until now, and any fallout from him not contributing or not wanting to be part of her life after missing her entire childhood is a result of her choice and her mess to clean up if he doesn't want to be part of their life at all. Yeah, it might feel bad for him for a while, But it's ultimately not his fault that he wasn't given the chance to make a meaningful bond with his kid to feel comfortable dropping large sums of money on her education. Am I the jerk for ruining a proposal at a wedding? So I, 27 male, am a part-time DJ. I mostly DJ for just family and friends. I'm not really a professional, just do it for a little side cash from time to time. Last weekend, I got invited to DJ on the cheap at a wedding for a friend of a friend. At the wedding, while everyone was on the dance floor, one of the guests, who we'll call Kevin, approached me and asked if I could play the song Golden Hour. It was an odd request because at the time, all the guests were literally hopping around and dancing, but I was told to take all requests, so I did it anyways. When I started playing it, the dance floor started to clear up, and then Kevin invited a woman onto the dance floor. They started slow dancing for a bit. A few people joined them, including the bride and the groom. Then at one part of the song, Kevin got down on one knee, and I knew right away that he was going to propose. I didn't think it was right, especially because they were in the middle of the dance floor with all eyes on them, and I kind of felt like if this happened, I would take the fault, because I was the one who put on the romantic song out of nowhere. So instead of letting that happen, as soon as he pulled out the box, I started to play Boogie and turned up the volume instead. After that, Kevin just side-eyed me and got up, and everyone else sat down. After that, nothing else really happened, and the tension was very thick. After the wedding, no one really brought it up, and I obviously thought that I wasn't the jerk, and the friend that was friends with the bride said that I wasn't. But then a bunch of the family started to message me. It turns out that Kevin was the bride's brother, and the family kept asking why I did that. I told them that proposing at someone else's wedding was not appropriate. They told me that I shouldn't have an opinion because I was just the DJ, and now Kevin got publicly humiliated because some people knew this was going to happen, so they were taking videos and live on Instagram so all their friends could see. I responded with, "That would have made the newlyweds hurt," but then they came back with, "You shouldn't have assumed that the bride didn't want that." That part got me thinking because I was mostly communicating with the bride about arrangements, and she was very chatty before the wedding, but after that, she kept giving me one-word answers, so I assume she's mad at me. But then again, when she paid me, she almost doubled the amount for what I was asking for with a generous tip. So I'm not sure if the bride actually knew. I think she would have told me. But am I the jerk for just assuming? ETA. A lot of people said to ask the bride and groom. I did, but like I said, their answers were vague. Bride said it was fine, but it was probably just to spare my feelings. I didn't want to push because she clearly had a lot on her mind in the moment. If the bride knew this was going to happen and approved it, she should have told you beforehand. Going with not the jerk, your heart was in the right place. Protect the bride and groom's day. Yeah, maybe hindsight is 20/20 here. But if I'm the guy proposing, I'm making sure every important person, like the DJ you're requesting a special song from, is in the know. Make sure one of the bride or groom tells them that it's chill if the guy uses their wedding as the spot to propose. Honestly, I'd want both the bride and groom to tell the DJ together that it's okay. Maybe I'm just an overanalyzer, but I would be playing out every possible thing that could ruin the proposal before actually doing it, and making sure those things are figured out. And if I can't shore it all up, then I'm not proposing. Agree 100%. If I'm the DJ, ain't no chance I'm honoring a request like that without getting verbal face-to-face approval from bride and the groom. And I want a third-party witness there to verify, preferably one of the other vendors. Proposing at someone else's wedding is very tacky. What if the bride was put on the spot and she secretly is happy that you messed it up? Takes the pressure off of her and lets her have her own wedding. I think your bank account agrees, not the jerk. Sister-in-law gives me unwanted parenting advice, huge mistake. I, 36 female, have a beautiful baby who's 10 months old, who was christened last Saturday. My twin and his wife, who's 41 female, flew in for the christening with my nieces, 7 and 5. They live in another state, and I paid for their flights because they live with a modest income and she's a stay-at-home mom. The day before the christening, when they arrived, my son was crying and we tried his usual self-soothing techniques, but he wouldn't stop. My sister-in-law said we should just give him his pacifier. I told her we don't use pacifiers and he's never had one. Over the next few days, it was a similar rodeo. Baby cry, and we would use self-soothing techniques, and sister-in-law would mention how pacifiers would soothe him. Well, after the christening, upon her suggestion once again to give my crying son a pacifier, I snapped, and in a room full of friends and family, I said, I would never take parenting advice from a 41-year-old woman that still lives on her parents' property, cannot hold down a job so she's a stay-at-home mom, that my retired parents have to send money every month to help them make ends meet, and whose 5-year-old still uses a pacifier to soothe herself and proudly shows them off. A 5-year-old whose mouth is so jagged and ruined that she and my brother will probably have to ask me and my husband for money for orthodontics care because they can't afford it. She's a prime example of what not to do when raising kids. Well, obviously, the room was silent and she ran off crying, and she and my brother left. They only came back that evening, but she nor my brother said anything to me. They left the next day to the airport. My brother said I have to apologize, and it was unfair of me to throw their finances in their faces. While I apologized for that, I said I would not apologize for telling her the fact about my niece's situation, and I told him that on multiple occasions, both I and my husband, he's a pediatrician, have warned them about the negative effects of a pacifier on a kid. My brother told me to mind my own business, and I said I gladly would, as long as his wife minds hers. Now my parents are telling me to apologize again. Naturally, my friends are on my side. So internet, am I the jerk? Edit. 1. To those saying I'm a bad parent because my son is constantly crying, he's teething, and we have various self-soothing techniques we use, including self-soothing music, his Sophie, classic teething toy, his soothing support stuffy, etc. 2. Brother and sister-in-law asked husband and I, pediatrician and surgeon, for medical advice regarding 5-year-old niece still using pacifiers. We warned them on multiple occasions about the negative effects of pacifiers on kids her age. They just failed to implement medical advice. 3. I do not have a temper. I was very stressed. However, I will be reaching out to sister-in-law in a few days to speak with her directly and apologize for my hurtful outburst. 4. The comments about the finances. Yes, I am upset because my brother is upset about their finances and wants her to get a job to help burden the load. His words. He's in grad school after a layoff to get a better opportunity for his family. He wishes she would help. She stopped working 6 months into her first pregnancy and never went back. You could have said, "Thank you for the suggestion, but we choose not to use pacifiers, and I expect you to respect our parenting choices, even if you make other choices." Instead, you dropped a bomb, destroying her entire life. You're the jerk. Frankly, no apology is ever going to repair that kind of a contemptuous string of insults. If you intended to sever that relationship, mission accomplished. You're the jerk. It's a pacifier, and you made that into an opportunity to get dirty and personal. You went for the jugular over a pacifier. The criticisms you made do not reflect on her parenting. They're personal. Yes, a 5-year-old is beyond a pacifier, but guess what? No parent is perfect. You aren't, and there will be plenty of people who pass judgment on you for your choices too. You haven't described any behavioral issues, just a pacifier and janky teeth. Your baby doesn't even have teeth, so what does her employment status, living situation, and finances have to do with either of your parenting choices? Saying that she's a prime example of what not to do in raising kids, based solely on socio-economical factors, is really not cool. It seems like you just don't like this woman, and you were looking for an excuse to feel justified in making cruel and unnecessary personal insults. You were horrible to them over tiny comments about a tiny issue. I can't imagine how nasty you get over actual stuff. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. You seem oddly proud of your kid not using a pacifier. Pacifier use is actually recommended to help prevent SIDS. Your husband, the pediatrician, should know this. You're the jerk. Dang, girl, you went full psycho. People are annoying sometimes. Family is usually extra annoying. You don't respond by insulting every facet of someone's life just for being annoying. I mean, clearly you do, but that's what makes you the jerk here. May I suggest a pacifier? It may help soothe you in the future. Not the jerk. Obviously, your sister-in-law doesn't know how to read the room, and sister-in-law owes you an apology, not the other way around. Sounds like your parents want to keep the peace at any cost. Maybe it's time to go low contact with them until they learn to respect you and your parenting decisions. Hopefully, your brother and sister-in-law will be too embarrassed to ask you and your husband for any future financial support, but that's very unlikely because people like them rarely change. Maybe I'm crazy, but I don't think a mom who has a 5-year-old with messed up teeth from still using a pacifier is the best place to get parenting advice. Am I the jerk for not sharing my inheritance with my sister since she chose to be adopted? I, 30 male, lost my mom when I was 5. Despite being so young, I had very vivid and treasured memories of my mom. It did not take to my dad dating a year after her passing well. My dad recognized that he knew this would be hard for me, but said that as the parent/adult, he knew what was best, even if it didn't seem that way at first, and that he'd thank me in the long run. Not long after that, he married my stepmom, Lucy, and when I began to act out over it, my dad said that parenting alone was hard, and that my sister, Jessica, who's 28 now, needed a mom. My dad even got my maternal grandparents to tell me that everything would be fine and how I needed to be a good boy. That was enough to get me to behave during the wedding, but once Lucy moved in and started redecorating, I started acting out again. My dad had had enough and just started punishing me whenever I acted out or made Lucy upset, as well as used the "Jessica isn't acting out like this." And to be honest, Jessica was easily pleased and wasn't old enough to have had the same attachment to our mom that I did. It really upset me when Jessica started calling Lucy Mom, and it really ticked me off when Lucy started referring to me as her son. I always corrected it when she tried that around me. It got worse when I was 8 and Lucy had her own kids, because then my dad and her started pushing for adoption. Jessica, obviously, had no problems with it, but I refused. My dad had my maternal grandparents come in again and tell me that adoption wouldn't be that bad, but I still refused. Lucy and my dad pushed for the adoption anyway, and thankfully, the judge listened to my feelings in a private room and denied it. After that, therapy started, but it didn't last, so they also tried the "since you don't want to be part of this family, you don't get this," or "you can't come to this." But I was too stubborn for that method to work on me. The only one who I felt was on my side was my paternal aunt, who kept sticking up for me whenever she'd see what Lucy and my dad were trying to do. So when I turned 18, I went straight to her. It was when I became a legal adult that my maternal grandparents confessed that they were never okay with the situation, but my dad threatened to keep me and my sister away if they didn't show support. I was furious, so furious that I had my surname legally changed to my mom's maiden name, as I wanted nothing to do with my dad and only ever really talked to my paternal aunt. Fast forward to now, and my grandma has passed. Grandpa passed in 2020, and according to their will, only their legal grandchildren are to split the $250,000 inheritance, and since Jessica is legally Lucy's daughter, all she got was a framed photo of my mom and a letter. Jessica doesn't think it's fair and thinks I should share, but I told her to get money from her legal grandparents. My aunt thinks I'm being a bit harsh, so am I the jerk? ETA, because someone asked. It had been 2 years since the last time she had spoken to either of my grandparents, while she frequently called and interacted with Lucy's parents. Jessica was never close to my mom's side of the family because she'd rather spend time with Lucy's family and or didn't want to hurt their feelings. ETA 2, again since someone asked. When Lucy moved in, she and my dad took down all of my mom's pictures and got rid of her things. I wasn't allowed to keep any pictures in my room, and I would catch heat if I tried to celebrate my mom's birthday, mourn on the anniversary of her passing, and get punished if I didn't celebrate Mother's Day the way Lucy wanted me to. So yeah, she wasn't this saint of a woman who stepped in when my mom wasn't there. Edit 3, because I'm starting to see the same thing. I don't blame Jessica for choosing to be adopted now. I'm angry at her belief that she should get any money from my grandparents despite never showing an interest in having a relationship with them once she was 18. They reached out numerous times, but she never bothered, yet has the belief that she's entitled to their money. That's what ticked me off. 2. My mom has a sister who also had kids. I'm not getting the full $250,000. 3. No, I don't expect anyone from Lucy's side to leave me anything, nor would I demand Jessica to share. It would be completely hypocritical. Not the jerk. Interesting how she only wants to be family now that money is involved. Not the jerk. Your grandparents had plenty of time to change their will. They used the specific term legal grandkids for a specific reason, because they wanted you to inherit from them. They assume Lucy will inherit from her other grandparents, and she probably will. Or if your dad is still sore, you may be excluded from his will, and they wanted to make sure you were adequately covered. Okay, so a few things here. Firstly, you seem incredibly immature, and I had to genuinely do a double take at the end to check your age, because this post seems like it was written by a 16-year-old. Secondly, in instances where a kid is adopted by someone such as a stepmother, then grandparents' rights can actually be established in the courts for things like visitation. Also, your grandparents treated her like theirs, even if they didn't have a great relationship, for their whole lives. My thoughts would be that if the will were to be contested by your sister, then she would have a decent chance of success. You seem incredibly bitter that your sister, who has only ever known one mother, chose to be adopted by her, which on the face of it seems like a good thing. You pride yourself on acting out against Lucy and hating her referring to you as her son, even though legally she was acting as your parent. Jessica was 6 when she showed an openness to being adopted by the only mother she's ever known, and clearly you still can't stand her for it. That's genuinely one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Has it ever occurred to you that your grandparents were actually okay with it, but then out of spite to your dad afterwards they said they weren't? That's a distinct possibility. You say that Jessica got a framed photo of my mom, but utterly failed to see that my mom was also Jessica's mom. Legal adoption after the passing of a parent is very different to people who are adopted through the system, so to speak. Everyone sucks here, apart from Jessica, but especially you. You can't stand your dad for moving on and bringing what sounds like a nice person into you and your sister's life. Your dad doesn't sound amazing by any means, but I honestly would take what your grandparents said about him with a pinch of salt. Am I the jerk for telling my husband my kids will not be supporting my stepson at sports games anymore? My husband and I have been married for 6 years and together for 8. He has a 15-year-old son, Lucas. Lucas' mother passed when he was 5 years old. I came into our marriage with Bryn, who is 11 now, and Miley, who is 9. Together, my husband and I have Alec, who is 5. So Bryn and Miley are Lucas' stepsisters, and Alec is his half-brother. Lucas has this trinket box with a couple of small trinkets inside of it that his mom left for him when she passed. He keeps it in his room mostly, but he likes to sometimes walk around with it in his hand. I've always told my kids it is not theirs. They are not to touch it unless Lucas says they can, and they cannot pester him about it. When we first got married, Miley was really fascinated with it and did want to touch it, but I nipped that in the bud since it was so special. Regarding the dynamic, Lucas is very closed off from me and the kids. I've always done my best to bond with him, but he is so withdrawn around me, and therapy, which we did when we first got married, did not get us onto a path of being close. Though I never expected to be his mom, and I don't want that considered. About a month ago, we were having dinner, and my husband cracked a joke that Lucas seemed to care more about the trinket box than us after Lucas refused to let Alec get a closer look at it. Lucas said, very seriously, that the box meant more than me and the kids, and he would gladly trade us to save the box if anything happened to it. My husband was shocked Lucas spoke so seriously, and the girls got upset about it. Alec wasn't paying attention when it was said. My husband took Lucas aside to speak with him, and I spoke to the girls. They told me Lucas had said that before, that he would trade our lives to save his box, that we better hope he's never asked to save one of us or the box because the box would win. He said this to them on a few occasions over a period of time. They never told me because they didn't know how to bring it up. He told Alec the same as well. My husband said Lucas would need some therapy because he saw nothing wrong with saying that honestly. I told him he was saying it, and more to the kids when we didn't overhear. My husband said therapy would get to the bottom of things. A few days later, Lucas is telling Bryn he'd save his friends over the box, but not her. I told my husband about it, and he said it would be mentioned to the therapist. He had a consultation with one the next day. Lucas argued that he didn't need therapy, and just because he doesn't care about us or our lives doesn't mean there's something wrong with him. I told my husband that given Lucas' attitude towards the kids, they will no longer show up to cheer him on at any of his sports games or the like. My husband argued that we're still a family. I told him my kids do not need to cheer on the boy who has told them to their faces multiple times that their lives are meaningless to him. My husband thinks I'm overreacting, and I would be wrong to do this. Am I the jerk? Why does the topic of saving someone over the box keep popping up like that? Everyone sucks here except the kids. Honestly, it sounds like a toxic environment was brought by the adults. Your husband's comment during dinner should never have happened. Why would you ask something like that to a teenager who's clearly missing his mother? Therapy is not going to change the fact that the 15-year-old misses his mother, does not see you and your kids as his family, and that you actually don't know what he would do if a crazy scenario actually happened. I could tell you that if there was a fire, I would risk my life to save a stranger. But the truth is, I've never actually been in this situation, and I don't know how I would react. And I'm 32 years old. Your stepson is just 15. Just leave him alone and let your kids have the choice to go or not to his games. OP. Apparently, he wanted my kids to know their place and to not get the idea that they mean anything to him. His words. They say it always came out of nowhere. Though the time at dinner, my husband definitely brought it on by making that awful joke. Think instead of react. It's been long enough, he's forgetting. He's forgetting smells, looks, memories. He's maybe even forgetting what he felt, and he's doing this to convince himself how much she meant to him. What do you and your husband do to keep his memories alive? Pictures of his mom should be everywhere. If there's a box with things of hers in it, sit down with him. Tell him you know you will never replace her, but the thing about her love is, it's not a limited resource. There's enough love to go around. Explain when you had your second kid, you didn't love your first ones any less. Start opening the box at this point. Explain to him your heart just made room for more, just like your heart has made room for him. Somebody's been watching a few too many Hallmark movies. Start opening the box at this point? Absolutely do not do this. Am I the jerk for opting out of my best friend's wedding because they didn't invite my girlfriend? I'm 28, male. My childhood best friend, Brad, who's also 28, is getting married in late May to Vicky, who's 26. A week ago on Easter, I received his wedding invitation, which only listed my name but not my girlfriend, Mary, who's 28. For context, Brad, Mary, and I have known each other since high school. We were in the same friend group. Mary and I live around 2 hours away from Brad and Vicky. Because Mary is a nurse, she doesn't always have the time to visit Brad and Vicky with me, so I go alone most of the time. But when she's able to, she'll join me. Mary has met Vicky and seen her around 10 times in the past 4 years that Vicky has been with Brad. Mary and I have been together for 6 years total, and we do plan on getting engaged and married once we are more financially settled. So I asked Brad if Mary is invited, and they just forgot to mention her name, to which he replied that Vicky is very strict about some rules, and in order to cut down costs, she's enforcing a no ring, no bring rule for the wedding. So since Mary is just a girlfriend and doesn't have a ring to imply some formality, then she's not invited. I reminded Brad that Mary and I have been together longer than he's been with Vicky, and that Mary is also his friend, not just my partner. He says he knows and tried to talk Vicky out of it, but she's very strict with that. I let it go, and I was in a dilemma about whether I should go to the wedding or not because of that. Mary told me she's not happy about the situation, but I should go to avoid more drama. So I called them to tell them I'll attend. Vicky picked up the phone and said she's sorry about making me uncomfortable by not inviting Mary, but these are the rules. I said I respect the rules. I'm not necessarily happy about it though. She then for some reason started being harsh about how Mary and I are not in a serious enough relationship if after knowing each other for so long and being together for 6 years, we're not engaged yet, and joked that after all, you never know what tomorrow brings, and I could break up with Mary anytime since we haven't shown any signs of true commitment. I confronted her and told her that it's not her place to validate Mary and I's relationship, and that it's really low of her to use a dumb rule just to shame and micromanage long-term couples who for whatever reason haven't gotten married yet. I said I'll pass after all and not attend the wedding. She and Brad said I'm disrespecting them and their choices by choosing Mary over their wedding day, and I said I don't care. Keep your rules, and I'll keep my relationship, because it's more important than any exclusive rules that only exist in order to shame people. I've been receiving a lot of backlash from other friends for that choice who said I'm the jerk for being so bitter about something so small. But to me, it's not small. They invalidated Mary and our relationship. Not the jerk. What a stupid rule, and stupid in this instance for many reasons. First of all, Mary and Brad were in the same high school friend group, so it could easily be argued that she could be invited purely based on being his friend and totally independent of her relationship with you. Second, using marriage as a barometer of commitment is insane. So by Bride's logic, if cousin Chad got drunk in Vegas and married the girl he's been dating for 2 weeks, she would get an invite, while your girlfriend over 6 years would not? That's so dumb. To top all of this off, you were initially willing to let it go and just come anyhow, but then Bride had to double down and insult your relationship to your face. That just sucks. Groom needs to step up and be a good friend and tell Bride she's being ridiculous. My boyfriend played video games the whole night, so I left. So I'm 29, female, and my boyfriend is 30. He's a gamer. And don't get me wrong, I play video games myself and really enjoy spending my time playing video games. But since my boyfriend lives quite far away, we only see each other once a week. That's our quality time together. Yesterday, I worked the whole day, went to the gym, and then drove over to my boyfriend's house. I arrived there at 7-ish. When I came in, he was playing video games with his friends. No biggie. I told him I'm gonna take a shower and be right out. When I came back, he wasn't playing anymore, and instead asked if I'm hungry and wanted to order some food. I thought he stopped playing and we're gonna spend some time together now, but no. He ordered food and went right back to gaming. At about 9ish, our food arrived. He was still playing. Fixed myself a plate, sat down to eat. He didn't join me. After I finished, I just got my stuff and told him I'm gonna leave because I'm not spending my evening watching him play video games. He finally took off his headset and told me, "Well, you could have said something. I was about to stop anyways." I told him that I feel like it's common sense to not be playing video games when your girlfriend visits you, and left. I was there for 2 hours, and the whole time he was playing. He hasn't tried to contact me in any way since. When I left, it looked like he was super upset, but immediately started talking to his friends again before I was even out the door. And to be honest, I didn't feel like a jerk then, and I don't feel like one now. But the more I talk to my friends about it, the more I feel like I should have said something. Maybe to some people it's not obvious that someone wouldn't want to watch them play video games the whole night. I mean, it should be, but maybe it isn't. Not the jerk. See, with me, I'm the gamer and my boyfriend isn't. Playing video games and talking to your friends while your girlfriend sits next to you waiting for you to finally notice her, that's a major jerk move. Good on you, you left. Hope you had a nice evening without him. And somehow, whenever you say something about someone's gaming habits, it's always, "Well, I was about to turn it off anyways." Try to convince my wife to cheat on me? That's why you're a single mom right now instead of a doctor. I, 29 male, have known my wife, who's 30 female, and her best friend, Jess, who's 29 female, since we were all 11. We attended middle and high school together, but I wasn't in their social circles at all. I was always one of the sort of nerdy, awkward kids, and the two of them were both very popular. My wife in particular was extremely popular because she was, and still is, extremely beautiful, kind, and intelligent. She was our student body president and valedictorian. Jess was also very pretty. I even had a tiny crush on her back then, and similarly popular. My wife and Jess have been best friends since kindergarten. My wife and I started dating our senior year of high school after we were paired together to complete a project in one of our classes. We realized that we got along really well, and she asked me out, and I definitely wasn't saying no to her. Jess, from the very start, did not respect our relationship and firmly believed that my wife could do much better. She has, in the decade plus since, consistently told me that my wife is out of my league, that I was lucky she settled for me so young, and that my wife belongs with a more attractive and successful man. Now, I'm the first one to admit that my wife is out of my league. She's far more attractive, makes more money, and is just generally an amazing human being. But hearing it so often doesn't exactly feel good. Jess also has tried to convince my wife to cheat on me multiple times and has even tried to set her up with other guys because she doesn't approve of my wife and I being the only partners either of us has ever had. Jess has a daughter who's 5, whose father bailed on her and raises her as a single mom. Jess actually dropped out of med school to raise her daughter once she realized the father wasn't going to be in the picture. My wife and I absolutely love her daughter and love having her over. Jess had a date on Saturday night, so she left her daughter with us for the night and came to pick her up on Sunday and stayed for lunch. As I was preparing lunch for everyone and her daughter was playing in the yard, Jess and my wife were talking about her date. Jess was going on and on about how attractive this guy was, how good he was at boom chicka want wow, and all of the details, but I just ignored it. Jess then looked to me and said, "You're lucky you locked her down when you were so young before she knew that there was better out there," and then turned to my wife and offered to give her the guy's number in case she wanted to try him out. I got really angry at that point, so I just said, "I doubt you know anything about better, since your taste in men is why you're a single mom and not a doctor right now." Both of them just stared at me in shock, and then Jess called me a jerk and left quickly with her daughter. My wife has been upset with me since, so I have to ask, am I the jerk? Edit. I just wanted to point out that my wife acknowledges that what Jess said was inappropriate, but thinks that what I said was unnecessarily cruel. It was always Jess's dream to be a doctor like her dad, especially after her dad passed, and now that's probably never going to happen. Jess has said this to me before, so I was aware of it, and my wife thinks it was uncalled for to press on something that's so clearly a pressure point for her. Jess also frequently bemoans the pain of being a single mom and about how all of the guys she goes out with ghost her as soon as she mentions her daughter. This is mainly why my wife is upset with me, because she thinks I purposely hurt Jess, while Jess's comments are a joke and aren't meant to hurt my feelings, which is probably mostly true. Alright, so I talked to Jess. Yeah, everyone said not to apologize, But honestly, sometimes you can acknowledge that you did something bad, even if the other person also did a bad thing. And yes, what I did was bad. Part of the reason I posted here in the first place was because I was feeling guilty about it, because I knew I'd been overly mean to her, and I was hoping that this post would make me feel less guilty. That didn't really work, unfortunately. So yeah, I was going to call her to apologize, but Jess actually beat me to it. Apparently, my wife had texted her and told her how I felt about everything she was saying, and that led to Jess deciding to talk to me herself. Honestly, I'm pretty impressed because my wife showed me the texts, and my wife didn't actually even tell Jess to apologize, so she did that on her own. I do believe it was genuine, especially because when she called me, Jess sounded pretty distressed. So she apologized, profusely actually. She said that she really didn't mean for me to take it seriously, and she felt really bad when my wife told her. I talked to her for a long time and basically detailed everything she had done to disrespect me and our marriage, and how I felt about all of it. She did apologize for it all and said that this was how she was with all of her friends. She told me all about how she would frequently tell my wife that she'd steal me from her, or that she had set me up with another woman that she knew. I told Jess she needed to stop that too. It wasn't right directed at me, and it wasn't right directed at her. She accepted that. She said the only reason she thought her jokes were okay was because it was so obvious we'd never cheat on each other. Apparently, Jess was never serious about giving my wife's phone number, and she would never actually disrespect our marriage like that. So at least she has some boundaries. Jess even said if my wife ever even came close to cheating, she'd be the first one to stop it, which I doubt, but there's no reason to rock the boat. I apologized to Jess for what I said, but I pretty much just flatly told her that her and I were not friends, so it wasn't appropriate for her to talk to me like that. She was pretty hurt by that, but said she understood. I then asked her if she had any jealousy towards our relationship, and she admitted that she did. She said she wished she had a relationship like that, and that it was pretty clear that my wife and I truly do love each other. So everyone saying she was jealous gets a cookie. So yeah, she apologized and so did I. Do I buy it completely? Of course not. Do I think at least some of it was performance, just crocodile tears? Yes, absolutely. Do I think she's sorry and will be better? I'd like to think so. Not the jerk. Your wife is the biggest jerk. She's allowed Jess to talk down to you for years and done nothing. You deserve better. You are out of her league. Jess is obviously a jerk for treating you like this and trying to get your wife to see other men for years. She should be banned from the house. OP. I wouldn't say my wife's done absolutely nothing. I mean, she has told Jess that her comments are inappropriate before, but I honestly think my wife has a hard time standing up to Jess in general. Not even just about me, but Jess also says inappropriate things about my wife, and my wife still doesn't say much. Not the jerk. And your wife should not be allowing Jess to disrespect you, especially in your own home. I think you should lay some ground rules out for your wife about how Jess treats you and what you're willing or not willing to tolerate. Jess is very much the jerk here, but your wife is a close second for not stepping in. Dude, everyone sucks here big time. She was also being nasty, and I'm shocked your wife and you apparently have been letting this dynamic go on for over a decade. But you said that in front of a 5-year-old? About her parents? To dunk on your wife's friend in the meanest way you could think of course that was a vindictive move. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Jess? Please let us know. If wife ever did actually want to cheat, Jess would totally encourage it and be happy probably. Always keep people like Jess out of your life, unless you're as crappy of a person as she is. Am I the jerk for telling my wife we can no longer afford to give our dog an allowance? We got a dog a few years ago, and training him was rough. He was already a full-grown dog and had never lived inside. Anyway, we'd give him treats and encouragement, and eventually he stopped being so wild inside and chewing things up, and he now uses the bathroom outside, etc. Like I said, we already give him treats for doing good things or listening to commands, etc. But in the midst of the initial training, my wife came up with the idea that we should give him a weekly allowance for being good and not having accidents, etc. This was set to $25 a week. Of course, we didn't give him the cash. Instead, she'd take him to PetSmart, and whatever he started sniffing or seemed to like, she'd buy, or she'll get him special treats beyond what we already have at home. I thought it was silly then, but whatever. I was just happy when we'd go a week without him going to the bathroom on the carpet or chewing up a pillow, so I agreed. And it's been this way for years. But now, money is tight. We can't really afford $100 a month extra. Not only that, but that money takes priority over our own allowances. For instance, I wanted to go out to eat last week, but because I have to set aside $50 every paycheck, my wife said we couldn't go, otherwise we wouldn't be able to essentially pay our dog. Not to mention going outside to the bathroom or not chewing things up is second nature for him now, and it's not like I don't want to buy him stuff, but we're barely making ends meet at the moment. $50 a check is a big expense. I brought this up with her last night, and she got very upset that I would even suggest not rewarding him, that I was being selfish for wanting to spend the money on myself. I told her we already buy him food and treats, and he already has 30+ chew toys, and that he doesn't need a bigger bone every week. He doesn't need gourmet food all the time. None of this is even including relatively frequent dog spa visits. She told me I shouldn't have let her get the dog if I didn't want to take care of him. But I do take care of him. We go on walks, play in the backyard. He has a whole room in our house with chew toys and a big bed. I think it's unfair to say I'm not taking care of him because I can't afford to give him a luxurious lifestyle anymore. Or that I'd like to go out to eat or have a little luxury myself every once in a while. But maybe I'm in the wrong. Am I the jerk? Edit. Additional info I meant to mention. My wife cannot have kids due to a medical issue that would put her at high risk and was devastated when she found out, as was I. But we also cannot afford to adopt or even have that desire right now, to be honest. Our dog, I think, was her way of coping with this and being a mother in some sense. So he is like our kid. I love him too, but she's attached to him in a way that is much deeper than what I would say is typical. Edit 2. She does not believe the allowance is teaching him anything. It's just her way of doting on him. She knows that he is not associating it with good behavior, so it's not an attempt at teaching him anything. More of, he's been good, so we should do something good for him. Edit 3. Just going to answer a few more questions by copying my responses. Why doesn't she get a job? Certainly something we could look into, and not something she has said she is opposed to at all. We were completely fine before all of this inflation, but everything going up by a little to a lot has really strained us. It took quite a bit of time to even realize it was happening really, because we had had a little bit of a cushion, and when you are slowly breaking even or dipping in 10 to 20 a check, I just didn't realize how little wiggle room we actually had. Now I'm just looking at what expenses are the most frivolous and what I can cut out. So really, it's been the last couple of weeks to a month that I've begun stressing about it. Dog allowance? I do think a lot of people in here are unfairly criticizing her because of the phrasing of dog's allowance. This is really her allowance to spend on our dog. I think maybe I've done a poor job communicating the finer details, which wasn't my intention. Why doesn't she get out more or make friends? She does take him to the park and on walks, but also she's very introverted. I've tried suggesting she hang out with her friends more, but she rarely ever does. Plus, most of her friends have kids now, and she doesn't admit it, but I know it hurts her. A couple of them didn't even want kids, and I think she just feels jealous or like it's unfair. Not that they have kids, but that she can't. Not the jerk. I love my dogs, but this is insane. Your dog can play with the stick you find outside. He doesn't need expensive treats every week, and he only needs healthy, not the most expensive, foods. Good grief. Not the jerk. Based on your edit, your wife needs therapy. She is overcompensating for not having a kid by focusing on spoiling the dog. Bottom line, you can't afford anything extra right now. Maybe that will change in a few weeks, but you can't afford it right now. If she wants to continue to spend $100 a month on the dog, then she can sacrifice something else if it's really that important to her. You are not neglecting the dog. He sounds cared for and in a loving home. Not the jerk. She's prioritizing your dog over your relationship based on what you're saying, and it's completely unfair to suggest you don't care about the dog. I think it's good she loves him so much, and it would be nice if you could give him all of the extras, but it does not sound like you are in a place to do so financially, and dogs don't need all of that to feel happy or loved. My roommate's entitled boyfriend demands to park his car in our driveway. I'm an undergraduate college student, and I live with 4 other undergraduate college students. All of us are 20 to 22 female. We have a pretty decent 5-bedroom house with a small yard and 2-car driveway with a garage, which we use for storage. For a college town, we live in a pretty nice area, but parking can sometimes be a nightmare. All 5 of us have long-term boyfriends. 4 out of 5 of us have cars. When we moved into the house last summer, we agreed that the driveway spots would go to 2 of the roommates. Our 5th roommate, A, was one of the roommates that was promised a spot. Unfortunately, she was T-boned just before we moved in and her car was totaled. Even though she really needs one to get her to classes and internship, A's parents do not want to buy a new one, and she can't currently afford to buy one herself. Instead, she has her boyfriend drive her wherever she needs to go. A's boyfriend parks in the extra spot in the driveway whenever he comes over, and he's over for at least 6 hours a day, every day, and sometimes overnight. We, the 4 other roommates, have asked A and her boyfriend numerous times to park elsewhere, like at least 6 or 7 times. We've talked to both of them separately and together to no avail. No matter the amount of conversations, A's boyfriend continues to park his car in the one remaining driveway spot. This has been going on for almost a year. We, the 4 other roommates, have all told our boyfriends not to park in the driveway, and they have abided by our requests. A sees nothing wrong with this situation as she was promised the spot at the beginning of the summer, and she thinks that since they're sharing a car, he has a right to park there now. However, since the circumstances just happen to be that she doesn't have a car right now, the other 4 of us think that if the spot should go to somebody, it should be someone whose name is on the lease for our house, as 3 of us could really use the extra driveway spot. When A's boyfriend isn't parked there, we rotate who gets to use it. Of course, this rarely happens. It got pretty heated today as one of my roommates came home to see A's boyfriend in the driveway again, and she said that if it happens one more time, she'll be calling the police. I really don't want the cops to get involved, but I am kind of fed up of him parking there and feel a little disrespected that she won't just ask him to move. Maybe I'm just being too harsh. Are we being unfair? Are we the jerks? Edit. Here's some more info regarding why we promised her the spot. We originally agreed to let her have the spot because she had a small sedan, and we did not know if any of the remaining 3 roommates' cars would even fit in the driveway. 2 pickup trucks and a large SUV. This was prior to us moving in. Once we moved in, however, we realized that the driveway was long enough that any of our cars could fit, granted only 2 at a time, and we loosely started who rotated. This was until her boyfriend started parking there and she claimed that he shouldn't have to move. Not the jerk. The parking spot is for the people on the lease. If the person on the lease is no longer parking there and there's no plans for that to be changing anytime in the near future, the parking space should go to someone else on the lease. Am I the jerk for being annoyed at my girlfriend after she turned off the power during her cooking while I was gaming? I, male 24, have been dating Helen, female 22, for 2 years, and we moved in together 2 months ago. This is my parents' old second home. My parents gave it to me when I moved out of the family home 5 years ago. Helen and I are very happy with this house because it's comfortable and well located. There's just a little problem with the kitchen. There are 2 ovens, one big and one small. The small one works well, but sometimes the big one cuts off the power when it switches off. You just have to turn the power back on the meter. It's not every time, maybe once every 5 times, but to avoid that, I always use the small oven, which was more than enough when I was living alone. When Helen moved in, at first, we took turns cooking, but she quickly insisted to manage the cooking alone. She thinks my cooking is a bit too basic. Her parents own a restaurant, so I guess she has higher standards and she cooks better than I do. I once suggested that we could cook together sometimes so I could improve, but she doesn't want that because she finds me too messy in the kitchen. I warned her about the big oven and to prioritize the smaller one, or to let me know before using the big one. I like to play Football Manager on my computer before dinner, and it would be a shame to have a power cut at this moment. If she tells me beforehand, I can save my game in case of a power cut. 2 weeks ago, Helen used the big oven without telling me and the power went out while I was playing. I gently reminded her to warn me next time, and it's okay. I had saved a few minutes before, and everyone can forget or mess up. Yesterday, she wanted to make cookies and used the big oven again without telling me. I was playing, and I hadn't saved for several in-game weeks. Stupid, I know. So it was lost. I was annoyed, and I asked why she didn't warn me. Instead of apologizing, she said aggressively to get over it, that I shouldn't get upset about that stupid game. After all, cooking the dinner was much more important. I got angry and answered that she shouldn't disrespect my hobbies like that, and she could just enjoy her so much more important dinner alone, and I stormed off. I went to visit a friend, who's 24, male, to vent, and I ended up sleeping there. I told my girlfriend by message that I will sleep there and it's best to talk tomorrow. My friend thinks that Helen messed up and is in the wrong, but this morning I received a text from a friend of Helen calling me a huge jerk. After reflecting on it, I started to feel bad. Maybe I did overreact, or I was completely in the wrong. Everyone sucks here. Fix the electrical issue, save your game, don't complain when someone is making your meals while you're playing games. Apologize for overreacting and not handling conflict appropriately. Don't storm off. She should apologize for not telling you she was using the big oven and for getting angry at you when you pointed it out. You should also ask if she's upset that you are gaming while she's doing chores and work out that issue. Everyone sucks here. Get the oven fixed. That's a problem. Perhaps also buy a small UPS for your computer if you're unwilling to do that. Now, if you went into the kitchen ranting about losing your progress, then it's only you who is to blame. But she, according to your side of the story, overreacted. However, storming out of the house over something this trivial is ridiculous. You aren't 12, and it makes me question the reliability of your point of view. You're the jerk. She's in the kitchen making your dinner while you're playing games, and you're angry that she forgot to ask your permission? That's not reasonable. You overreacted. It's a game. If it bothers you that much, get the oven fixed and get some cooking lessons. It's amazing to me how many of these posts are based on an argument starting over gaming. Grow up and fix your electrical before your house burns down and you don't have a computer at all. Am I the jerk for being angry that I wasn't asked to be in the wedding party? I'm 28, female, and one of my best friends, Mark, 28, male, just got engaged, and he and his fiancée are planning to get married next spring. For context, Mark and I have been good friends since high school. My boyfriend, who's 28, has also really bonded with Mark over the past 2 years of us dating, and they regularly go golfing together. We have also done a lot of couples vacations and dates and outings together, and we were seemingly very close to Mark and his fiancée. My boyfriend and I just recently went to their house for a party, and Mark and his fiancée asked my boyfriend, whom they know through me, and only for a couple of years, to be in the wedding party as a groomsman. I was not asked to be a bridesmaid, so I would not be involved in the wedding party at all. When I asked Mark about this, he said it was because they wanted even numbers, 5 groomsmen and 5 bridesmaids for the wedding party, and that his fiancée already had enough bridesmaids. I thought for sure I would be asked to be in their wedding as a bridesmaid, seeing as they were my good friends, and I would have 100% included them in my wedding party if I were the one getting married. So not only was I not asked to be in their wedding party, but my boyfriend, whom they had known for all of 2 seconds, was. I felt very hurt that they would ask him to be a part of their big day, but not me. I confronted Mark about how hurt, sad, and angry I was about this, especially because I don't know if my boyfriend and I will even still be together a year from now. Mark told me that he was sorry that my feelings were hurt, but he and his fiancée don't want to apologize for doing what they want with their wedding. Mark told me that this situation has impacted our friendship, especially since he doesn't think they have anything to apologize for. My boyfriend declined to be a groomsman, and we haven't spoken to Mark since. Am I the jerk? Edit. Just to clarify, I never expected to be asked to be in their wedding. Of course I would have loved to be in their wedding party because they are my friends. I've been friends with Mark since I was 16 and friends with Alyssa, his fiancée, for going on 8 years now, and I would love to celebrate their love and happiness, but I never ever demanded it. If they never would have asked either of us to be in their wedding, I would have been totally fine with that. It's that they asked everyone else in our friend group to be in it, including my boyfriend. Everyone except me. When Alyssa, Mark's fiancée, talked to me about it, she said the only reason she didn't ask me to be in the wedding was because of the matching wedding party numbers, which was disappointing and hurtful. I totally understand that it's their wedding and they should do what they like, but I also hoped they wouldn't exclude me like that because of wedding party numbers. I know everyone says to not make it about me, but what do you do in that situation? Not say anything at all? I just felt a little blindsided. Maybe Mark and I weren't as close as we thought. Perhaps it's all for the best. Note: people are taking the boyfriend bit way out of context. My boyfriend and I have been off and on because of long-distance issues, but we love each other deeply. He's currently living back home, but that might change in the near future. He might have to move across the country for work, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to uproot my life and move with him yet. That's why I'm not sure where we'll be a year from now. It's all up in the air currently. You're the jerk. Groom has been socializing solo with your boyfriend for 2 years, which you changed to all of 2 seconds at the end of your story, and selected him as a groomsman. No mention here of you socializing solo with the fiancé, and she probably picked people she was closer to. You're not owed a spot in the bridal party just because your boyfriend got one. You're being a bit dramatic here over a wedding that's not even yours. I know I'm going to get massively downvoted for this, but after going back and forth, I'm going with everyone sucks here rather than you're the jerk, because I feel like ultimately your friends are being the bigger jerks. Mark and his fiance should have known ahead of time that it's kind of insulting that you've been his good friend since high school and he's including your boyfriend in his wedding party and not you. I think the considerate thing to have done was to not include you both, or at least have a proper conversation with you about it. I think you crossed the line by expecting to be a bridesmaid, confronting him about it, and saying that stuff about your boyfriend. The last thing was really not cool. Isn't it amazing how much people fight over weddings? Not as amazing as how much money people waste on them. Boss tries to give disciplinary action for working too hard. Midway through my career, I found myself working for the most prominent private college in my state. I was in the IT department and was in charge of maintaining a few servers and all of the technology in classrooms. Every summer, we would receive our budget for the year, and the part of the budget I managed was spent mostly on upgrading the audio and visual presentation systems in the classrooms, and most of that work had to take place during the summer. This is fine, normally, but our college administration had created a ticking time bomb for me a few years before. They had decided to spend about $100,000 on a few classrooms, but did not allocate any money in our budget to replace that equipment when it would eventually fail. I had been there for 5 years, and now that equipment was starting to fail. Increasing our budget was not an option, despite faculty growing to depend on the equipment in these spaces. I was left to figure out how to make this same budget replace all of the equipment in those spaces, as well as the normal set of classrooms that would need to be upgraded elsewhere. Fine, I was up for the challenge. I had to simplify and purchase more value brand of equipment and do extra work to cut corners. A couple of weeks of shipping delays for the majority of the equipment saw me with roughly 1 month to rip out, replace, rewire, and configure around 15 classrooms, as well as update and test all of the existing classrooms within about a month before the semester began. Realizing the amount of work ahead of me, I began working. I came in every day of the week for 28 days straight, working 8 to 10 hours to ensure that when the semester began, the professors would have working equipment. I was salaried, so I did not have to clock in. This gave me the freedom of scheduling work as little or as much as required. I worked myself sick and was literally sick at the end of the 28 days. My supervisor was a guy we recently hired. Let's call him Gus. Near the beginning of the semester, while testing equipment, I realized that the audio driver in a common model of computer we have in the classrooms was corrupted. Investigating it, I realized that the computer manufacturer had corrupted drivers on their web server where we downloaded it from. I asked my supervisor, who was in charge of managing the image deployment server, to rebuild the image with a non-corrupt version of the driver I had provided him. He said he would. I swing by the next day and ask him if he had completed the rebuild. He had not. I tell him I really need it as the semester loomed closer and closer, and he tells me he will work on it. Next day, nothing. Day after that, nothing. Finally, he figures it out and I continue my work. He must not have liked being pressured, and perhaps the perception that he was incompetent. He must have gotten to him. He decides to power trip and call me into his office and ask why I was working so much. I explained the administrative oversight a few years prior, shipping delays, cheaper equipment, extra required work, and his delaying of a working image. I tell him, look, I came in day after day after day asking for that rebuilt image. Each time I said day, I'm poking my finger straight down on the edge of his desk, enough that it makes a sound to emphasize that those delays hurt the work I was doing. He wanted to find some personal failing that he could pull out some form of disciplinary action around. I gave him none. Eventually, he ran out of ideas and I left his office, not thinking much of it. Gus, however, was a jerk of the highest order. He would follow our IT director like a puppy. He joined a band with my IT director, so my work situation was not exactly fair. The semester began, and not a single issue in all of the classrooms was reported. I was proud of my work I was able to complete, given the challenges. The second day of the semester, my IT director calls me to his office. There, Gus is sitting beside him, and they both want to talk to me. I don't like the looks of this. My IT director starts asking me about why I was working so much. I explained to him, as I did Gus, the various factors that made this summer's work extra challenging. This destroyed any valid criticism they could muster. Gus goes on to say that he innocently inquired about my work and that I became violent, talking about the gesture I made on his desk, illustrating his failure to do his work in a timely manner. I demonstrate exactly what I did on the IT director's desk to show how ridiculous this claim was. My IT director wanted to exert his authority, and they would not stop until they had something to discipline me with. Nothing I would say would change the result. I was to be in trouble for whatever transgression they imagined up in this meeting. I make sure to point out how long it took Gus to do the small task that I depended on, knowing I could have completed it in about an hour. He was incompetent. My IT director then alludes to the fact that I should respect Gus more, as he is my supervisor. Forget it, I think to myself. I then tell my director, "It is as if Justin Bieber was trying to teach you about music theory. It's only going to upset you." This sudden, sharp, and in my opinion, hilarious comparison was too funny. Both Gus and my IT director immediately laughed, even though Gus was subject of this insult. Once they had stopped laughing, my IT director put on a more serious tone. He says that I could manage my time better, despite the unique circumstances of this summer's work. His voice gets really soft and slow while he's talking to me now. This is a trick he forgot he told me that he uses in arguments to make the other person seem like they're out of control. It's condescending, as if spoken to as a child, and now he's using it on me. He tells me that he wants me to take some time management class, also to take a couple days off and think about it. I just want you to think about it. However, he's going to need my keys and badge. Cue malicious compliance. At this point, he has provided me enough evidence that this is not a job I want to stay at. The absurdity of working so hard and for 28 days straight on salary with no extra pay and to be rewarded with a disciplinary action was too much. That in that moment I had thought about it. Without saying anything, I hand over my badge. I took all the many keys off of my keyring and set them on his desk. I have thought about it. I tell him in the exact same soft and condescending tone he used with me. And you can keep the keys and badge, I told him with the biggest wry smile on my face. I then walk to my office. He follows me, and I notice his eyes become glassy, as if he was hurt by the situation unfolding before him. He expected me to capitulate and accept his punishment for a job well done. He kept saying, "I just want you to think about it," with each time becoming increasingly desperate, and I kept repeating, "I have thought about it." He disappears back to his office with his little minion, Gus, to discuss damage control. I quickly pen an email to all my other coworkers letting them know I was leaving and that I enjoyed working with them. I had to work quick as I knew they would shut down all my accounts very quickly. I packed up my personal effects and left. Gus and my IT director offered to help me, trying to walk back the situation with some small gesture of goodwill, but I was gone. I had been there for 5 years, but I was willing to walk away the moment he tried to treat me so poorly. I found out a little later that the week before I left, a programmer we hired left after he treated her poorly too. I was not aware of the reason she left when she did, but our office manager shared that she quit abruptly like me, without anything lined up given his behavior. About a year later, I hear from the office manager that the IT director had left. Rumor is he was primarily working for another company while in his office at the college, effectively double dipping or making money for 2 jobs while only doing one. He had been caught doing so and was warned by the administration to stop. He opted to leave instead of owning up to his own dubious behavior. My only regret is that I didn't leave that job sooner. Karen tries to steal my bird from me at PetSmart. Be careful taking your bird out in public. Someone may try to steal it. I decided today would be the perfect day to pop the harness on Isadora, my sulfur-crested cockatoo, and take her out to PetSmart. I needed a pack of Aspen for my baby chicks anyway. Got her in the carrier in the car, and on the road we went. She did remarkably well and didn't even get car sick. But you know what tiny detail I forgot? People talk to you when you bring your bird to the store, whether you want them to or not. I'm very good at dealing with people. Years of retail work, restaurant work, admin, etc. have trained me in the art of small talk. The PetSmart workers were fantastic, actually. Asked the basic general questions, no one asked to pet her, everyone kept a respectful distance and didn't overwhelm her, or me. Other customers though? Oh no. There was one woman in particular. She told me she had a scarlet macaw, a Hans macaw, and a Goffin cockatoo at home. She stopped me to chat, asked about my bird, and I gave the condensed version of her story. Isadora is almost 16. She came from an older couple who wanted a younger home for her, etc. She's doing great. She's the love of my life, etc. She asked, "So, she's almost 16 years old? How long have you had her?" I said for 4.5 months now. "Have you ever had a cockatoo before?" "No, she's my first large bird, and I couldn't have been luckier." This woman, who was only in her 50s probably, so she's only a little older than I am. I'm 39, female. She tells me, "You shouldn't have her. You don't have the experience with large birds, and you're too young to have one. You don't even look like you've got your own life together." And she reached for Isadora. She was going to take my bird. I would love to pretend like I had some witty comeback. I thought of all the good responses in the last couple of hours since we've been back home, and I've had a minute to process. In reality, I came back with the unbearably witty retort of, "What?" Because I'm brilliant under pressure. I stepped back and put my cart between us and said, "Nope, we're not doing this," and I turned around and walked out. Hours later, I've gone back in my head and told her off 10 ways to Sunday. In the moment, I was so flabbergasted. Someone tried to take my bird away from me. Like, she literally tried to grab my bird off of my hand. I don't think we're going to have another field trip. I think we'll stick to the yard for now. This was a stupid experience, and I would have enjoyed it more if I had had some brain power to yell at her and embarrass her for even trying to take my bird from me. She deserved to be horrifically embarrassed. I'm so mad about the whole thing. I'm still shaken up about it, and now I'm going to dwell on it for the next lifetime. Am I the jerk for ruining my dad's chances of winning my mom back? I'm 25, female, and my parents are getting divorced after 24 years of marriage. My mother was basically cheating on my father for months before he found out. I put cheating in quotation marks because my dad was a horrible husband, so I was actually happy she found someone else. Once my mom said she wanted to separate, my dad completely changed. He said he didn't want her to leave, begged her to stay, saying he will change. He actually got on medication for his depression, started being more affectionate, and asked for couples counseling that he said my mom agreed to do. One day I go to my parents' house and my dad says he wants my help winning my mom back. We're in the backyard and mom is in the house. I told him no because I want what's best for her and he's not it. He said that he has severe depression and saying that he's bad without acknowledging how depression can affect a person isn't right. He said he was disappointed because if the genders were reversed, I would admonish him for cheating and breaking the vow of marriage. Now this is where I might be the jerk. My dad is doing everything he can to win my mom back, so I said that while I won't help him, I wouldn't interfere in his plans and would stop talking about him with her. Me and my mom talk a lot about how crappy of a husband my dad is. At one point in the conversation, he says, in a calm tone, "I know you're not going to like this, but I'ma say it anyway. When one parent gives you gifts and takes you on trips and buys you things, of course you're going to side with them, even if they're wrong, because you don't want to lose that." This made me so angry. I have a genuine friendship with my mom, whereas even though my dad was a fantastic father, stay-at-home dad, gave us everything we ever wanted or needed, I don't necessarily enjoy being around him. I hang out with him sometimes out of obligation, but it's very forced, and I know he can tell, and he's told me this hurts him in the past. I basically went off saying, "Forget you, and how dare you," and that he had no right to question my character, and the reason I like my mom more is because he's no fun, unmedicated, he's rude and rigid, and it has absolutely nothing to do with money. I'm screaming, but up until this point, our conversation was calm, and we were almost whispering so my mom wouldn't hear. My dad keeps trying to shush me, but I don't let up. I go to my mom and tell her what he just said, and he keeps looking at me saying, "Why are you doing this to me? I can't believe you're doing this to me. We were just having a calm conversation." I say I'm leaving, and my mom gets in the car with me. Later, my dad says that after my blow-up, my mom no longer wants to go to couples therapy. Am I the jerk for blowing up and making it harder for my dad to win my mom back? Edit. I'm editing this to add that the reason I'm so involved is because both my parents talk about the other to me. My dad started first, and my mom only got involved when I asked her if she was mistreating him in any way he was claiming. But they're both wrong for this. Other important info. My dad told me my whole life that he has bipolar disorder, and that's why he was so messed up. I've sent him books and podcasts and articles and lectures for years about this disorder. I made my entire family start therapy 2 years ago, and I said that my only request for my dad is that he get medicated because he knows he has bipolar disorder. He laughed and said, "I was waiting for you to say that. I'm not even bipolar." The therapist then got a little curt with me and said I shouldn't armchair diagnose just because I was a psych major. My dad just nodded along. This is just one of his serious manipulations, but he does it to me often, and that's why our relationship is fractured. Not the jerk. It was wildly inappropriate for your dad to request your help getting back together with your mom. Their marriage is their business, not yours. Not the jerk. Your dad was trying to manipulate you and your mom, and you did the right thing calling him out. You didn't ruin his chances to do anything. He's been doing that for years and just wants a scapegoat to blame his actions on. Not the jerk. Witness tampering comes to mind. You were good. You offered not to work against him. Then he exhibited the same type of horrible behavior as previously. Your being furious at him was a direct result of his actions and verbal attack. You were justified in feeling insulted and reacting to this. When all he had to do was just keep quiet after your offer and accept the win, he simply couldn't resist again showing you who he was. Your father trying to pin your mother's decision to not try therapy on you does seem to be part of his normal behavior pattern. Not the jerk. Your dad sounds like a total jerk. I'm also glad your mother was cheating on him, and I don't blame her one bit. This really reminds me of my own sorry excuse for a father. He also claimed he had mental health issues, and of course wanted to play the victim when my mother left him. Like, dude, you're a 40-something-year-old white dude living in America, and you seriously expect me to feel sorry for you because of your mental health? He thought paying my college loans would magically cause me to want a relationship with him. But once they were paid, I still went no contact, and I suggest you do the same. You're the jerk. I'm so disappointed in the way people are talking about the father in this story. Just because he's a man doesn't mean that he's immune to mental health issues. The fact that so many of you are excusing the mother's cheating and even cheering it on while simultaneously mocking and ridiculing the father, it just shows the hypocrisy that our modern society has been programmed to accept. I know I'll get downvoted to heck for pointing out this double standard, but I'm just disgusted to be honest. You all know darn good and well that if the roles were flipped, you'd be singing a completely different tune. Am I the jerk for sabotaging my little brother's and my birthday party? Me and my little brother have very similar birthdays. My brother's 12th birthday is today, while my 17th birthday is 2 days from now. Because of this, starting from when I was about to turn 5, after my brother was born, I've always remembered that my family has officially stopped celebrating on my actual birthday, and they rather prefer that we celebrate both of our birthdays on my little brother's birthday. And whatever compromise that I have, my parents had always dismissed. Like when I asked if we could celebrate on the day that's between our birthdays, my parents would respond that it would be rude to my little brother to celebrate his birthday late, but celebrating mine earlier isn't. Or when I asked if we can just have 2 separate birthdays, my parents have stated that that was a stupid idea because that wasn't cost-friendly and it was too time-consuming to have 2 separate birthday celebrations, especially since the birthdays were so close to each other. It's gotten so bad to the point that no one in our extended family even remembers when my own birthday is because everyone believes that me and my brother have the exact same birthday, which makes me hate how close me and my brother's birthdays are. So for this birthday, I ended up doing some changes for this year. With the money I saved up, I ended up buying a decorated cake that said, "Happy birthday, brother's name, only." And I switched it with, and got rid of, the cake that had both me and my brother's name on it. I ended up hiding all of the pink decorations and leaving behind only the blue ones. And I also made sure to scribble off my name from anything I can get my hands on, like the banners, invitations, letters, etc., so that only my brother's name and information was on it. And on the day of the party, I rejected any gifts towards me and stated that, since it's my brother's birthday today, we should be celebrating his day, since I hate celebrating my birthday on a day that isn't my actual birthday. This caused a mixed reaction to a lot of family members, but it ended with many respecting my wishes and focusing on the birthday boy. My brother was the only one that was completely happy about it, probably because this is the first time that he was able to celebrate a birthday that was his own, and he enjoyed getting all the attention for himself. My parents, however, were livid at me for being petty and childish enough for wasting my time and money, and especially their money with all the vandalism that I did, sabotaging this party. In addition to that, they were also mad that I made them look bad, because a lot of our family are giving my parents flack for making it look like they're prioritizing my brother over me, as well as complaining that my insistence that they focus on my brother on his birthday to be unsettling and worrying. I mean, I think I may have gone overboard just a bit, but I don't think I did anything that wrong. Am I the jerk here? Not the jerk. Well done. And the best thing is that your brother was thankful. Next year you will be 18, and after that, you can celebrate any way you want. Not the jerk. And this almost belongs in malicious compliance. You didn't explicitly steal the spotlight from your brother, you made it about him. Brilliant. And you didn't make it look like they're prioritizing your brother. They are prioritizing your brother. You just let the rest of the family see it. Not the jerk. Good job. Your family now knows your brother is the golden child, or at least favored. There's no reason why they couldn't do his party one weekend and yours the next. My kids are 2 weeks apart. We never combine parties. It's not fair for them. You're the jerk. You had a little tantrum, not because you aren't being celebrated annually, but because you're having to share it with one other person. And it sounds like a decent affair too. Shoot, talking about banners? Most people don't get banners on their birthday. Some people are lucky to get a Duncan Hines yellow cake on their birthday. Also, cut the crap. Stop acting like you care about your brother getting his solo birthday. You care about you getting your solo birthday. Yes, you are the jerk. In short, what you did was deceptive, manipulative, and mean-spirited. You did something to look innocent and kind towards your younger sibling, but villainize your parents. That's not cool. As an adult, the logic about not celebrating a birthday late versus early kind of makes sense to me. I can't fault your parents for that logic. Still, I also think having it on a day that falls in the middle of your birthdays isn't a terrible idea either. The day itself, in my opinion, doesn't matter just as long as the birthday is recognized and celebrated. I've celebrated my friends' birthdays weeks after because that's when we were finally able to link up and afford to do it. Their birthdays fall during end of term or exam period. If I were your parents and could afford it, I'd let you guys celebrate different birthdays. I don't know your financials though, but I can see how it could be too expensive to have 2 separate events. Even 2 separate cakes and foods so close together, especially with the prices people are charging these days. They'd even have to buy more decorations. There are nuances, and I don't know, and off the bat, I'm sorry, but you come off as a brat. As the oldest, you'd think at this point, by 17 years old, you'd be more understanding about the nuances of money requirements in comparison to a 12-year-old. They aren't neglecting you since they put both of their kids' names on the cake and had pink stuff and decorations for you. After complaining about how costly having this event is, you wasted their money and tossed the cake that they got. That was wasteful. The guests brought gifts for you. It's both of your events. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter that I'll be missing her graduation to attend my son's? I, 43 female, have 2 kids. My daughter, May, is 21, and my son, Luke, is 17. May's father and I split shortly after she was born, and I met my now husband when she was about a year old. Due to work and life circumstances, May primarily stayed with her father, but visited us on the weekends when she was younger. She's an incredibly bright girl. She has an AA, she's about to graduate with her BA, and she's been accepted into a master's program that starts in the fall. I'm so proud of her, I can't say that enough. My son Luke is graduating from high school this year, and I found out that his graduation is a few days after my daughter's. We don't live very close by anymore, so it would be back and forth flights, which just doesn't feel practical. Since May is getting another degree, I've told her that I'll attend her next graduation, but this time I'm just going to attend her brother's since graduating high school is such a big step. May seemed a little upset at first, but she told me it was fine and that she understood. My ex called me later and told me that I wasn't considering May's feelings in the slightest. Her high school graduation in 2020 was canceled due to lockdown, then her ceremony for her AA was virtual for the same reason. So now that she's finally having one, my not going has really hurt her. I told my ex that I'd go to her next one, and that it's not fair that I just not show up for her brother. He says that it's more than possible for me to come see her graduate and then fly back in time to see my son do the same. My thing is that yes, it's possible, but it isn't practical. May told me herself that she is a little upset about it, which is why she vented to her dad, but she apologized for making it an issue. I don't know how to feel about this now. Am I being a jerk here? ETA. My daughter found this post, which wasn't my intention, but I did reach out to her to apologize for not being considerate of how this was going to make her feel. I'm going to fly out earlier to spend more time with her and to attend her graduation ceremony. You're the jerk. It isn't fair to pick between your son and daughter. If it's possible to go to both, then you should, even if it doesn't seem practical. My other question is, why is it even relevant of which parent she grew up with primarily? Both are your kids. It shouldn't matter if she grew up with her dad. Agreed. It'll be a whirlwind trip, but if it's possible, OP should make the effort to attend both. I might feel differently if she went to the daughter's high school graduation, but that was canceled. So this graduation would be the culmination of her high school diploma, AA and BA. The fact that OP is blaming the practicality is BS. She could go, but literally just doesn't feel like making the effort. I'm sure May is just telling her mother, "Oh, it's okay," but is extremely hurt. I doubt this is the first time OP didn't want to put in the effort for her daughter. Sounds like her poor daughter is just used to being second to golden child brother. You're the jerk, majorly. You're the jerk. I'll go to your next one is so crappy. And it's completely your decision to not fly in earlier or to just suck it up and put in effort. You seem to really be a weekend parent to the heart. One gift for birthday and Christmas? No problem. I love birthdays and have always loved celebrating them, both for myself and for others. I love to give gifts as much as I love to receive them. But I was born in December, so it's always been an uphill battle getting people to celebrate mine or separated from the religious holidays happening that month. For me, it's not about the gift, but the principle. I've had several friendships where I was expected to help plan and pay for expensive gifts, dinners, trips, etc. for a spring or summer birthday, only to be told what an inconvenience it was to have to do something for a December birthday. I've been called greedy, childish, and have even had people ask me why I can't just combine my birthday with someone else to make it easier. It makes the friendship feel one-sided and makes me feel like an inconvenience. I don't get so upset about it anymore, but I do have some firm birthday rules. 1. You don't have to get me anything, but if you do, just pick one, birthday or Christmas. Keep them separate. 2. Whatever the agreement is, let's make it mutual. If no birthday gifts the agreement, it should hold for all birthdays involved, not just the inconvenient ones in December. Well, a best friend and I recently got into an argument about it because she felt I was being selfish for wanting 2 gifts in the same month. When I said we don't have to do birthdays, she insisted that she should get a separate gift for her birthday in March because it's a different time of the year. I pointed out that this was unfair, but she wouldn't hear it. I jokingly said in the end that if she gave me 1 gift for the month, I would purposely wait until March and give her an empty box for her birthday. She said sure, go for it. And as promised, she gave me 1 gift for both days and told me to stop being so childish. So March comes around and she has a little get-together, and the time comes to open gifts. When she unwrapped mine and saw that it was empty, I said, "Merry Christmas," and she got really upset. She said I was being petty and childish and that I was going out of my way to ruin her birthday. The other guests seemed really upset too, and some of our mutual friends want me to apologize. I'm refusing to do so, and we haven't spoken since. Your friend's logic doesn't make sense. Either everyone gets to celebrate Christmas and birthday separately, or no one does. My son has a birthday December 30th, awful for planning parties, so we usually hold the family birthday mid-January. He gets separate gifts always. My wife is from December 23rd, so she insists on separate gifts. Get new friends who aren't selfish jerks. Am I the jerk for taking just my nephew to fun places and not my stepniece and nephew as well? My brother has an 8-year-old son, Caden. Caden's mom passed when he was a baby. My brother married Simone 2 years ago almost, and they have blended families. Simone has Bella, who's 10, and Archie, who's 9. Bella and Archie's dad passed when they were 4 and 5. Caden was really excited about Bella and Archie and having siblings. My brother and Simone told him that he'd have a brother and a sister, and they'd be buddies for life, and it really made him eager to live with Bella and Archie. But his experience with them has not been a positive one. They don't want to include him in anything. They seem to go out of their way to not spend time with him. Examples that I've witnessed and have been told about by Caden. Bella and Archie will be outside playing with kids in the neighborhood, and when Caden tries to join in and play with everyone, Bella and Archie will go inside, or they will go and do their own thing away from the other kids and Caden. Caden said sometimes Bella and Archie have said no to him joining, and Simone will tell her kids they cannot stop him from playing with everyone else. I witnessed this myself at Christmas. Kids in my parents' neighborhood were playing outside with their new toys and stuff. Caden joined a little after, and Bella and Archie left the larger group playing together and went off on their own. When their mom noticed, she went outside to say they should join the group again, and they said no because they didn't want to play with Caden. Sometimes my brother or Simone will break up the kids into different groups for some fun family time, and Caden is always told they don't want to do that stuff with him. When my brother takes them, Bella or Archie will try to wander off. When Simone takes them, they always try to put her in the middle of stuff so it's not like they're playing or having fun with Caden. Several months ago, when I realized how much it bothered Caden and how sad it made him feel, we started doing a water park or trampoline park near us for the occasional fun day out. He'd asked to invite his step-siblings, and given they are my step-niece and nephew, that made sense. The kids have never said yes. They've been offered, and they will say they don't want to come. So I still take Caden. But now Simone is bothered by this. Last time we went, Caden had such a good time, and he said it was the most fun he'd ever had because he got to stay late on the trampoline for helping another kid who was there. I guess Simone was bothered by him enjoying that so much when her other kids weren't there. I told Simone that Bella and Archie have always been invited, but they never come. She told me I shouldn't be taking Caden either then. My brother said maybe it's better to just lay off for now and not to bring Caden along. Simone wasn't just happy there though, and told me to consider my actions because I was being deliberately hurtful to her kids. Am I the jerk? Tell your brother, alone, that his kid is lonely. Tell him what Caden has been telling you, that Bella and Archie very obviously bail on every group Caden joins and he's crushed by it. Tell him that you will keep inviting Bella and Archie out for Caden's adventure days, and if that's hurtful to them, then you're at a complete loss as to how. Keep doing those days for your nephew, OP. You're his hero. And try to avoid being trapped into conversations with Simone for the foreseeable future if you possibly can. She's working out some weird, resentful stepmom energy there. Keep yourself out of the mix. Maybe your brother will see it plainer for himself if you're not there to blame. Not the jerk, as you already know. Not the jerk. It sounds like Caden is being bullied by his step-siblings. Just because they're not overly aggressive does not make this behavior less hostile. It sounds like your brother and his wife are not seeing this or doing much to help. Please don't let Caden feel like he's alone. If Simone has a problem, she should talk to her kids, and maybe they could all use some family therapy. Am I the jerk for telling my stepdad to take care of his actual kids? I moved an hour away and started a job over the summer and have become close with a few coworkers. One of them and I have become actual friends outside of the office, and she's integrated me into her friend circle. After getting to know her backstory, mom was abandoned while pregnant and had to raise 3 kids, we got close, and I consider her a good friend now. She's so sweet and nice. Last weekend, I was over at her mom's house getting ready to go out and was looking at some pictures on her wall, and I saw one of her younger brother and a man and took a double take. He looks exactly like my stepfather, but younger. I tried to find another he was in, but that was it. She saw me staring at it and said that's her father, and I laughed and said he looks like my stepdad. She asked me his name, and I said it, and the color of her face left. She started calling for her mom to come to the room, and the next 10 minutes were me awkwardly answering questions. Turns out, my stepdad is her father. I met him when I was 6, so my friend would have been 8, and that's the time he left. He never mentioned having any kids, so it was shocking. It was horrible to hear them cry, and we never ended up going out. I told them that he has a successful business, and maybe they could get money for back child support, but they said they didn't want anything from him. I went home this week, and things have just been awkward. My stepdad is so nice, and literally my only father figure, so to know he abandoned his biological kids is crazy. My stepdad kept asking me why I'm acting weird, and I didn't say anything at first. My mom pulled me aside, and I told her everything. To my surprise, she didn't even react. She said how he lives his life is his business, and I shouldn't judge him. This is coming from a former single mother. I remember her crying over my dad leaving us, and I was disgusted by what she said. So I told her loudly to not speak to me, and she's a hypocrite, and stormed out of the house. My stepdad followed me to my car, saying that I need to come back and apologize to my mom right now, and I told him to go and apologize to the kids he abandoned and listed their names. He looked like he was going to faint and went back inside the house. My mom has been sending me texts that I need to apologize to my stepdad for being a jerk to him and making him cry for days, and that he raised me and took care of me, and that I shouldn't forget that, and that if he didn't do what he did, I would be the one without a dad and to be grateful. I haven't replied back. Am I the jerk? You were grateful to have him as a father before you knew this, and you can still be grateful for what he's done for you. At the same time, you can feel disgusted by what he did to them. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your mom should be apologizing to you for reacting to the news of your dad's misbehavior by attacking you instead. You've discovered that your stepfather is not who you thought he was. He, and your mom, told you a massive lie of omission for your entire life. He and your mom walked away from his family he was legally and morally responsible for. The fact that he raised you and took care of you has very little bearing on this new information you've discovered. It's okay to be appalled and take time to process this shock. And for goodness sake, you don't need to be the one apologizing. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for keeping in contact with my girlfriend's estranged half-sister? I've been dating my girlfriend for almost 5 years now. We just found out we're having a baby recently, so we've been happy about everything. About 2 years into our relationship, I accidentally met her half-sister, I'll call her Anne, who was born from an affair. It was at a baseball game. This girl who looked exactly like my girlfriend came up to us and introduced herself to me and tried telling my girlfriend about her upcoming graduation and that she wanted us to go. My girlfriend declined everything and told Anne to not speak to her. On our way home, she told me about her father's affair with this woman when she was only 5, that she had a half-sister that she never liked. I asked her if she ever tried to get to know Anne. She said no. I never had contact with Anne within the next 2 years until I saw her singing in some subway station on my way to work. She noticed me and asked if I wanted to get coffee, which I agreed. I asked her why she was singing in the subway station. She told me she was getting by and that she was living in a hotel room nearby. I had to leave early due to my work and gave her my number to keep in contact with me. So we did keep in contact with each other. I got her a job at a friend's hair salon and I helped her get an apartment. I told her about the pregnancy and we're becoming first-time parents. She was happy for the both of us. Anne must have seen her sister in public because she congratulated her on the pregnancy. My girlfriend hated that she knew and said she didn't want me to be near her again. I was given an ultimatum to stop all contact with Anne or leave my pregnant girlfriend. I only felt bad for Anne because I was homeless at a young age and I saw a lot of me in her. I gave her the support that I wished I was given. You're the jerk. Your girlfriend made it super clear that this was a boundary for her. You've gotten yourself involved to a degree that goes way beyond keeping in contact, which would have already been crossing a line. The boundaries are for the girlfriend. She can't extend her boundary to him just because she's uncomfortable. Frankly, if I was the boyfriend, I would be more concerned on why my girlfriend has no sympathy for her half-sister, considering she didn't choose to be an affair child. She doesn't have to have a relationship with her half-sister, but stopping the OP from having one is just hostile. Considering that she still chooses to visit her father, she's made her views on affairs pretty clear. On top of all of this, she's assigning ultimatums? His girlfriend does not seem responsible or even empathizing enough to have a kid. She absolutely can extend those boundaries to him. What if this wasn't her sister, but an ex who had mistreated her? If this was his sister, she would be wrong to demand no contact. But it's not. It's her person, and she has every right to try to set that boundary. If this was an ex or someone who had hurt her, that's an entirely different scenario though. This girl hasn't done any harm to his girlfriend. She's just existing with the consequence of their dad's poor decisions. How does his being kind to her have any bearing on his girlfriend? It sounds like she's too much of an indirect communicator to just tell Anna that she doesn't want to talk to her or have a relationship with her, and instead is trying to control her boyfriend's relationships. She doesn't have to feel bad for her, just because they're accidentally related. No one owes someone their love, consideration, or thoughts. OP getting the person a job and an apartment was way over the line. Keeping in touch is one thing, but he's doing too much. And it's a little weird to start a relationship with his pregnant girlfriend's half-sister when he was told not to, and then to continue maintaining it. He's getting nothing but grief, so unless they're hooking up, He needs to knock it off or lose his girlfriend. You're the jerk. The thing I never understand about these types of situations where busy-bodied people go around helping the estranged family of people they supposedly love is the question of loyalty. You know your girlfriend doesn't want anything to do with Anne. Why did you feel the need to have a relationship with Anne? I don't believe for a moment that you go to coffee, help with employment, and exchange phone numbers with every homeless person you see in the subway. Why this particular girl? Especially when you knew your girlfriend wouldn't want that. Have you no loyalty? Your girlfriend doesn't want yet another avenue open to Anne to get into her life. Why did you feel the need to pave the highway? Yes, you are the jerk for keeping in contact with a person who meant nothing to you, but you still build a relationship with, knowing your girlfriend wouldn't want it. Such a huge breach of trust against your partner. You're the jerk. Sure, we can all say OP has the right to make his own decisions, blah blah blah. But had the OP been honest with the girlfriend, I would have agreed. However, you went behind her back. It's almost as if you cheated on her with the product of a cheater. I'm sure that's the way she sees it. Even though it's not half-sister's fault she was born. OP, you knew it felt wrong, so you omitted telling her, which is as good as a lie. Now she's pregnant and feels that the one person she could trust is no longer there. I don't know if there's any redemption for your relationship. Steal my Legos for your classroom? You'll be sorry. I had 8 large storage totes of Legos when I left home for college. Besides a few family heirlooms, I told them the only thing I wanted were my Legos. They could get rid of anything else. I even offered to come pick them up and store them with me while I was in college, so they weren't a burden. My mom said it was fine, she would keep them stored. Great. Fast forward probably 12-ish years, and I've got a 5-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter who are quickly approaching Lego age. My wife and I are buying a home, and it will have a decent-sized area upstairs above the garage that we intend to turn into the playroom. I was talking to my wife about my plans. I wanted to put in padded flooring, build a fort-style structure in one corner, maybe build into the crawl space, a tunnel-type system or something, and I wanted to make an area that would be dedicated to the Legos. My wife seemed a little cagey about the plans. It would cost a bit of money, set our expectations down, etc. I obviously didn't plan on anything happening overnight. A few weeks later, and we're getting ready to head to Easter at my mom's house. I tell my wife I want to take our truck as I planned on grabbing the Legos from her place and bringing them home, and my wife gets a little cagey again. I sense that she knows something, and she finally admits it. My mom took the Legos to her classroom. My mom's a middle school teacher, 6th to 8th grades, special education in our town, and my wife is an assistant in her classroom. I guess several years ago, my mom took the Legos to the classroom for the kids to play with. I told my wife I would just get the Legos from the class at the end of the school year. However, my wife thinks I should just let it go. Some of the kids really love the Legos, and they would have a hard time if they came in after a summer away, which is already pretty hard, change and whatnot, to find out that the Legos are gone. We talked about potentially buying some Legos from Craigslist for the kids to use, but I definitely wanted my Legos back. A lot of them tend to be older. Tons were my dad's Legos when he was growing up, so I definitely want those ones. At Easter, my sister got roped into the discussion with my wife and she agreed with my wife. While we both enjoyed the Legos a lot as kids, I would be a jerk if I took my Legos back from the classroom. They both suggested starting a new collection for our kids so they can love and enjoy these ones as they grow up. But I just don't agree. Part of the reason why they were so special to me was because they were handed down to me and I got to add to them. I was hoping to be able to do that here. Would I be the jerk if I took my Legos back at the end of the year? Not the jerk. Your mom could have asked you first. Those were Legos started by your dad, so there's a sentimental value, and that's something you want to share with your kids, so it's only fair you take the Legos back. I honestly don't get these jerk parents who don't think their kids would want to pass on favorite toys to their own kids, their grandkids, one day. Not the jerk. Your mom and your sneaky wife can buy replacement Legos on Craigslist for her students, or ask the students' parents to each contribute a bunch of Lego, or both. They both were dishonest. They're your Legos, and you made it clear you wanted to keep them. Very clear. Zero wrong with wanting to keep something that was yours as a kid. Take all the Legos back at the end of the year. Inform your mom and your wife now so they can start looking for whatever replacements they need. Am I the jerk for helping my son avoid his family after his wife cheated? I don't really feel great about throwing this up on the internet, but everyone's upset with me. So this is what I've got. My son and his wife have been together for 6 years, and they have a 4-year-old daughter. They've had their problems every once in a while, but to me, it seemed like they always worked through it. I know he absolutely loves her, and I thought they were very close. But 3 days ago, my son came to my door at 10 at night, drunk, sick, and in complete tears. I guess she had been cheating on him for some time, and during an argument, she finally admitted it. He just fell apart. He could hardly breathe right. I cleaned him up and put him in bed, and that's about where he's been since. He looks sick, he won't eat. I've never seen him so upset. His wife and her family were calling us both repeatedly, but we just didn't deal with it at first. He was devastated. I wanted him to have a moment to gather himself. This morning, I bit the bullet and answered her call. She was angry he had walked out and left her with their daughter and said she just wanted to talk about this like adults. I told her that she could talk to him when he chose to contact her and that I think he'd want to work something out, but she needed to give him some space. She got more upset and I told her I wouldn't talk if she was gonna throw a fit, so she hung up. I don't know what she told her family, but I've since gotten calls from her mom begging me not to let him leave her and their daughter. Her sister called to go off on me for protecting a deadbeat father. They're all freaking out. He isn't abandoning his family. His life has been turned on its head, and I want him to have some time to find his feet. It's just been 3 days. It's not like he's run away. But now everyone's angry at me for letting my son leave his daughter, which he absolutely adores his daughter. He'd never just up and leave. So am I the jerk for letting him stay with me to get away from his family? I know it leaves his wife in a tight spot, but it's been 3 days and she hardly works part-time. It's not like he's left her with an impossible task, and I absolutely intend to have my son deal with this, but I just can't see him feel like this, and I don't think he could have any meaningful conversation this way. What should I do? I'm not trying to let him hide from his responsibilities, but he's hurting and he needs time to breathe. Some additions for clarity. Of course, we've discussed the possibility that his daughter might not be biologically his, but he doesn't plan to abandon her regardless. He loves his daughter and would, despite anything. And as far as if her family knows the full story, I have no clue. I haven't even tried talking with them yet. Not the jerk. He isn't opting out on being a father. He's taking the time he needs to process information. He needs to get his crap together quick and go be a father again. He needs to divorce her, collect evidence, hire a lawyer, and get a DNA test done on his daughter. His wife has been cheating for some time. I would definitely double check. That's up to the dad. He doesn't have to do that. He could be fine with not knowing this part if he loves his daughter as is, and knowing would only change things for the negative. If he's able to put what he knows aside and not be plagued by the thought, what a saint. People have done this forever before DNA tests existed. Sometimes not knowing is the better choice. It's not up to anyone else to decide but the dad. You raise and love the kid for 4 years, and you know for sure that that's your kid. The DNA test can only tell you if they have your DNA. 4 years of being a parent, and you already know they're your kid. Not the jerk. I know I'll get downvoted for this, but I feel it needs to be said. If the kid turns out to not actually be his, he should not be obligated to pay child support to make up for his wife's cheating and another man's burden. It's sad how so many of you are claiming he should skip the DNA test and just provide for the kid no matter what. Like, no wonder there are so many wives who end up cheating, having kids with other men, then still expect their husbands to financially support their kids. Most of you crazies here are claiming this is what should happen and what would be the right thing for OP to do. Holy entitlement, Batman. I'm selling a family heirloom to pay for my destination wedding. My fiance, 38 female, and I, 39 male, are planning to get married this summer. We both want to have quite a lavish wedding at a winery in another state. The two of us agreed that it's the most important occasion in our lives, so we should make it as memorable as possible. We both have stable jobs and a good amount of savings, but it's not quite enough for the, admittedly ambitious, plans we have in our heads. My father passed in January, and in his will, he left me a very valuable, think 5 figures, family heirloom. I'm not much for big family traditions, so although it's a nice thing to have, I'm not massively attached to it. I have plenty of other good memories of my father, and I don't need a fancy heirloom to remember him by. My brother, who's 34, however, is a huge history nerd and is really attached to it. He was very upset by my father's decision in the will. The reason it went to me and not to him is that this has been traditionally passed down to firstborn sons. My fiance and I don't plan to have any kids, and I think he assumed, therefore, that he, or his kids, would be in line to get it if I were to pass away. After some discussion, my wife-to-be and I decided that we would like to sell this heirloom to pay for our wedding. My brother, who is also my best man, was furious when he found out and said he wanted nothing to do with the wedding anymore. He thinks my wife-to-be and I are behaving like spoiled brats. In addition, he's convinced my uncle and cousins not to come to the wedding either. With our parents having passed, this means that virtually none of my family will attend the wedding, which I'm really upset about. I think that since I legally inherited the heirloom, I can do what I want with it. I think he's just upset because I ruined his expectations of one day inheriting it. But since my uncle and cousins agree with him enough that they are not coming to the wedding, I'm not so sure I'm in the right. Am I the jerk? Technically, you can sell it because it's yours, but you're the jerk for caring more about a ridiculously lavish wedding that will break the bank than you do for your relationship with your brother or your dad's tradition. If your dad had known that you were going to sell it, he would have left it to your brother. I hope your lavish wedding is worth it to you. You're the jerk. If you sell the item, don't be surprised if it ruins your relationship with your brother forever. All for what? So you can brag about your wedding to friends while looking at pictures that don't include anyone on your side of the family? You're the jerk. Legally being able to do something doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. I doubt your dad would have given it to you if he knew you were going to sell it like it was nothing. Your brother didn't convince anyone to be mad at you or to not go. I bet he just told them, and they made those decisions mostly on their own. You probably should have thought about all of that before making such a selfish, self-centered decision. Not the jerk. Sorry, I don't get the whole family heirloom is the most important object in the entire world kind of thinking everyone has. If it's not something you're going to use or want to keep, get rid of it. Maybe I'm a sociopath, but last I checked, you're allowed to do what you want with your own property. Last I checked, you're allowed to spend your money how you want. Could you have offered to sell it to your brother or uncle? Sure. Would all the same people be calling you a jerk anyway for not just graciously giving away a 5-figure inheritance? Absolutely. Personally, I think anyone who feels entitled to what your father left for you is selfish and greedy. I know I'm going to get crucified for this take, but I really don't mind considering my mental image of everyone who will downvote this is of them divvying up their parents' assets while they're not in the ground yet. Not the jerk. Entitled house cleaner brings her kids and her kids trashed my house. Gotta put this out here. Most absurd entitled parent situation I've personally encountered. My husband and I looked to hire a local husband and wife small business to clean and do our maintenance projects on our house before our baby comes in a few weeks. They came by tonight to take a look at the projects and, surprise, brought their 3 elementary-aged kids. No biggie, I thought. Not ideal, but I like kids, and I like the idea of our home being a welcoming place for them. We'll let it go. We opened the door, and the kids scattered. All 3 of them took off screaming in different directions with their shoes on. 1 ended up in my room, and 2 on different ends of the living room, where they all 3 started pulling my daughter's carefully organized, orderly toys off the shelves at an extremely rapid pace. "Well, they sure made themselves at home," the mom beamed. "They sure love your house." I tried to orient the parents quickly so they would leave ASAP, and the oldest kid noticed our loft, which is our playroom and library, and is also carefully organized and decorated with love with various handcrafted elements, and they all raced upstairs. We have 4 kids of our own, but managed to mostly keep things orderly. Each toy has a place. We have some small and breakable pieces from my and my husband's childhood. All the books are shelved alphabetically in categories. All 3 kids started shrieking at the sight of the room. I was trying to wrap up discussion with the mom. Then the stomping started and the clanging. Sounded like jumping off furniture. I paused for the mom to say something, but she didn't even bat an eyelash. Then came a crash that could only have come from furniture falling over. Mom, again, didn't so much as comment. My husband ran upstairs, alarmed. The youngest one, 4 maybe, then raced down, needing to go to the bathroom urgently. 3 of our 4 bathrooms need service, which is why we were hiring these people. So the only bathroom available was our master bathroom, where we have chicks in an incubator. As I showed the kid where to go, she got distracted by the chicks and screamed to the older kids upstairs to come and see now. So the older 2 came barreling and yelling, shoes on, through my room and bathroom, and the small one didn't quite make it to the bathroom in time. This all happened in like 15 minutes. I thought we'd quickly be introducing the adult contractors to the projects and negotiating pay. This was bizarre and horrible, I thought, but we'll just have them do the job tomorrow and not work with them again. But then, two of the kids started to tantrum when it was time for them to leave, notably without putting away a single toy they had disassembled or strewn about. Mom says, "It's okay. We'll be back so you can play more with them tomorrow." What? She was expecting to bring the kids and leave them unsupervised in my house? Or maybe she expected me to provide childcare while she performed tasks clearly unsafe for kids to be closed off in rooms for 7 hours. Of course, we're canceling. I'm almost too shocked to even be upset. I just checked upstairs and found a shelf of books partially toppled. Every toy in the living room is in pieces on the floor. The bathroom is a mess. It happened so fast, I just can't. Sounds like they've got quite the business plan. The minions' job is to wreak havoc in your house, so you have no choice but to hire them to clean it up. Am I the jerk for asking for time away from my wife? I'm 28, male. My wife is 24. She has a very strong bond with her family. Last month, both of her parents moved to live with her brothers in Australia, and she's been feeling very down since then. I'm definitely at fault for not making enough time for her these past few weeks due to excessive workload at my new job. This all led to constant arguments initiated by her. It started to get really suffocating and frustrating for both of us, so I asked her if, for a few days, she can go live at her parents' house that they left in her care. She did not say anything, but packed her stuff and left in the morning. I only wanted her to have some time alone to clear her head. I assumed she needs space and called to ask her if she reached there safe and needs groceries since it's been a month that house has been empty. She didn't answer my calls, but sent a text later to inform me that she's there. I thought she really wants to spend this time alone, so I decided not to bother her because she's an introvert who often needs her personal space. We talked very briefly over messages a few times after that. On Tuesday, I took a day off of work to go see her since it's been over a week, and she didn't return or even call. I found out that she's been sick for days and is on leave from work. When I asked her why she didn't inform me, she said she did not want to bother me. I took her to see a doctor, and turns out she has jaundice and is 4 weeks pregnant. Now she's back home. I've apologized, but she's unusually reserved, and I feel like I'm the reason. My intention was only to give her space and have some time alone for myself. I really love her and never intended to hurt her at all. Am I the jerk? So let me get this straight. 1. Your wife expressed that you had been ignoring her. 2. Your response to this was to send her away to live in an empty house by herself. 3. You ignored her all week. 4. And you justify this by saying she needs space? You were doing this for her? No, you wanted space, and you're so immature and messed up that you can't even admit it to yourself. Your selfish behavior here has made your wife feel awful, humiliated, and disrespected. Not to mention, you could have put her in danger because she was sick and pregnant. You are a completely self-absorbed jerk, and it doesn't seem like you respect her or care about what she wants at all. You're the jerk. I feel bad for your wife that she's stuck having a kid with you. Your wife was depressed because her parents moved. You didn't make time to help her because of work. You were fighting a lot, and how you found time to fight when you had no time to be loving and supportive is beyond me, so you kicked her out to go live in an empty house. How you could have written all of this out without realizing you're the jerk is amazing. Holy cow, you're the jerk. This woman is going to be the mother of your baby, and your answer to being in conflict with her was to ask her to leave? Don't do this again. Next time, she might not come back. She'd be better off not coming back. Not the jerk. Let's see. So the husband is working long hours at work in order to provide for his family. His wife is acting like a needy baby because her parents moved. You're refusing to coddle her, so now Reddit thinks you're the bad guy? Honestly, she sounds like she has issues. No wonder everyone here is defending her. About 99% of the people on this site have issues themselves, to be honest. If I were you, I'd be getting a divorce. Find someone who actually appreciates the fact that you work long hours to keep a roof over their head and who doesn't need to be coddled because her mommy and dada moved. Can you imagine if the roles were flipped? My husband is sad because his mommy and daddy moved, and I've been working long hours to provide for him, so I haven't been constantly available as his emotional sponge. I asked him for some time apart and if he could go stay in his parents' vacant house. Am I the jerk? Everybody would be telling her to leave you. Am I the jerk for asking my ex if our son, who's 11, could bring his stepbrother, who's also 11, on their father-son camping trip? My ex and I got a divorce when our son was 6. When he was 8, I started dating my current husband. On the day my son met his stepbrother, they stood in front of each other, sized each other up the way that boys do, and were silent for a moment. Then my son asked, "Do you want to play Super Smash Brothers?" And his stepbrother said yes, and they ran upstairs. It was fraternal love at first sight. They've been attached to the hip ever since. My stepson's mother passed a few years ago, and my husband was actually hesitant to introduce me and my son to his 2 kids because he thought it was too soon. It turns out that everything worked great. The first year we were all together, my stepson asked if my son could come along when they visited their mother at the cemetery on her birthday, and he spent the whole car ride over telling my son all about her, and it seemed therapeutic for him. Later that night, I checked in and saw that my son had climbed up to the top bunk and they had fallen asleep curled up together. Before she entered her current 7 going on 17 phase, my stepdaughter used to crawl into my son's lap as often as she did my stepson and ask them to read to her. Since the divorce, my ex-husband has been unreliable at best. He cancels on my son regularly, making some excuses about work and what have you. The twice-monthly weekends together have trailed off to 3 or 4 times a year. Every time I have to tell my son his father canceled, my stepson goes to his father and asks if the 3 of them can do something together. One of the few things my ex-husband likes enough to always follow through with is camping. He's planning on taking my son camping in a few weeks, the weekend after Father's Day weekend. My son loves camping as well, and he's the one who convinced my stepson to join Boy Scouts next fall. The thing is, this year he wants to bring his stepbrother along. I told my ex-husband this, and he got upset, saying that it's their time together, and he doesn't want someone else's kid going along with them. He says that it's supposed to be the 2 of them bonding. I told him he's had plenty of chances to bond that he blew off for one reason or another, and that he should consider himself lucky that he has such a compassionate and sensitive son, and that our son still wants anything to do with him. He hung up in a huff. His mother called yesterday to complain that I was expecting my ex to just sit there while my son and stepson went off on their own and ignored my ex completely, and said that I need to look at it from his perspective since he only gets to see our son a few times a year. For obvious reasons, this annoyed me to the point where I hung up. My husband said that he gets it and thinks I should just let it be the 2 of them. Am I the jerk? 99.9% your ex is clearly the jerk, but it's reasonable for him to not want to take the stepson camping. You're the jerk if you try to push this. Making a plan for the boys to go camping with OP's husband is the way to go. Even if neglectful dad has refused the stepson and dips out on his own son, both boys will still have another adventure to look forward to that will actually happen. Win-win. You're the jerk. You asked, he answered. The answer was no. You didn't need to keep going. She didn't really keep going. She advocated for her son and then got harassed by his mother. The ex also did not appear to be stepping up to tell the son that the stepson couldn't come. It appeared that the ex and the ex-mother-in-law wanted the mother to do it. None of this is her problem. She relayed her son's request. Her work is done. Her only response going forward should be, ask your father. She is not the jerk. You're the jerk. I'm with your husband on this one. The dynamic of the trip changes completely with another kid going along. Your ex goes from dad being fully engaged and participating with his own son to referee/fire starter/tent maker. Am I missing something? It seems pretty clear here that your son is the one that expressed interest in bringing his stepbrother along. Your son is pretty lucky to have meshed so well into a blended family. All you're doing is asking your ex if your stepson can come too. Ex is allowed to say no. You're allowed to try to change his mind. But your husband is right. You should not be pushy about this. I get you hold a lot of resentment against your ex, but you must have made your ex feel pretty guilty for him to go crying to his mom. I haven't gathered enough from posts to indicate that you are actually being pushy yet, so I'll just say no jerks here for now. I don't think you're missing anything. All the "you're the jerk" votes seem to have poor reading comprehension. I don't even see how she tried to change his mind. She stated some basic truths, and the ex got huffy and hung up and went crying to his mommy, who then called to go off on OP. The "am I the jerk" question is about asking her ex. For that, I would vote not the jerk. Did she actually refuse to accept a no or refuse to tolerate BS from ex and ex-mother-in-law? I'd be annoyed too. He's been neglecting his son so much and then getting upset about this of all things. His attitude could be improved in my opinion. I do agree with OP. Her son seems to be way more understanding and forgiving than his dad. And not to be rude, but probably more emotionally mature too. Am I the jerk for not paying my boyfriend's child support? My boyfriend and I have been together for 4 years now. He moved in with me around the year mark, and during this time, he has not held a stable job due to health concerns and being in and out of the hospital. But he is working now and has been for a while. Between the both of us, we have 4 kids, his 2 and my 2. His ex-wife is constantly saying how her kids are my responsibility too, even when they aren't at my house, and that if my boyfriend cannot make his child support payment or pay for after-school care, or if her kids need something, that I should step up to do it. Child support is set up to come out of his checks. But I won't. It's been nothing but a battle with her. She's constantly tearing me down and saying that I'm not a parent to her kids and shouldn't even try, that it doesn't matter unless my boyfriend and I get married. She has and still does talk crap about me to my boyfriend's family. It's not been civil, and I have done nothing but try. Mind you, I have 2 kids of my own. I pay for everything in my home, including anything and everything his kids need while here, not to mention the gas for him to get his kids to and from during his time. I make sure that all kids have everything they need here, even when it comes to holidays. I buy the same for his as I do mine. I make sure his 2 are included in everything that we do, because we do it as a family. I love those kids as my own, but I cannot afford to pay 2 households worth of stuff. But in the end, it doesn't matter. She goes off on me for not stepping up and paying her child support or not asking if there's anything they need for her house. Am I the jerk for not paying his child support to their mother? I feel like you are in a pattern of getting with men that do not care for their own kids properly. Not the jerk. Your boyfriend sucks for not paying child support or buying things for his kids, but it's not your responsibility. 5 years from now, she's going to have 1 or 2 of his babies too and be complaining about how he never pays his child support. Info: why are you with someone who can't afford or refuses to pay their child support? Everyone sucks here. Why are you in this situation? You have 2 kids to support with little help from their dad, so you move in this guy who has 2 kids too? Now what resources you have to be split even more. You kind of suck here. We get you want to be loved, but how little does your kids have to receive so you can enjoy whatever this man brings to you? You already know that you don't have to pay this woman anything. You're just here ranting that she's a jerk who badmouths you. So what? Why are you even talking to her? Block her number and send this dude back to his mother until he can hold down a job, pay his bills, and have something sustainable to offer to you and your kids. What does he bring to the table other than his needs? You're the jerk. Situations like this really drive me up the wall. Why do they always choose to be with guys like this, who have kids and refuse to provide for them? I'll tell you why. Because those guys are 6 feet tall, have good facial genetics, muscles, and are overly confident. Then you have guys like me, very average looking, good job, master's degree, not super confident, and not even one woman will swipe right on me. Then the women I do manage to meet through mutual friends always tell me that they like me as a friend and don't really want to try dating me, but they're fine going out to eat with me as long as I pay for it as usual. Then you hear about couples like this and I just don't get it. Like, maybe the hot guy with 2 kids he doesn't provide for and who doesn't have a job won't make the best partner for you. Maybe give the normal-looking guy who has his own house, makes $80,000 a year, and has no kids yet a chance. Edit. Call me all the names you want. Nothing that I've said here is untrue. We live in an age where pointing out the obvious results in people calling you names and belittling you. No wonder you're all picking the wrong guys. You people have no common sense. Am I the jerk for losing my temper at someone who rear-ended my car? Earlier today, I was driving to work at my internship job. The car behind me was driving dangerously close to me the whole time. Then, as I stopped at a red light, the girl driving behind me tried to do a full lane change at the very last second and hit the back corner of my car just as she was turning in. I signaled to her to stop over on the side street parking ahead and proceeded to have the most frustrating interaction I've ever had with a stranger. She refused to apologize or take any responsibility. I don't think I've ever dealt with such an entitled and stuck-up jerk in my entire life. I genuinely tried my hardest to stay calm when I first approached her, but I very quickly lost my patience in less than 10 seconds of interacting with her. Me. What are your insurance details? Her. I don't know them, bro. Me. Who manages your insurance then? Your parents? Her. Maybe. I don't know. Is this a police interview? Me. Can you stop messing around and just find out what your insurance details are? Her, smirking.
Why are you crying about it? My car's messed up too, and you don't hear me complaining.
Me. Are you dumb? Was I the one who rear-ended you, or did you crash into me? This mess happened because your brain is too small to learn how to steer a car properly. Her.
Don't call me dumb. Watch your tone when you speak to me.
Me. Forget you. I'll talk to you however I want. If you're not going to give me your insurance details, then I'm just going to take a photo of your number plate. Her.
Whatever, I'm done talking to you. I don't talk to short men.
At this point, I knew the conversation wasn't going anywhere, so I took a photo of her car's plate and we both drove off. Personally, I think my anger was completely justified. I've never dealt with someone so exhausting. Not the jerk. I think you should have stayed at the scene to call the police though. Now she can claim that there was some mutual agreement reached, when, in fact, she fled the scene. Also, I hope you have uninsured motorist coverage, because I seriously doubt she doesn't know her coverage. She was probably either an unauthorized user or didn't have any. If she refused to provide her car information as required by law, they can still call the police and report it. I had to call the police on the guy who rear-ended me and refused to provide his insurance, and they ticketed him for it. You're the jerk. She was probably just scared out of her mind. I'm a younger driver too, 21, female, and to be honest, we just don't waste time on the road. You consider her driving to be erratical, but chances are she was just driving the way normal younger drivers do. Then you made her pull over, got out of your car, and demanded her details without even introducing yourself? Then you're surprised she doesn't have a customer service attitude with you? I would have called the cops on you if I had been her. You sound like you have serious anger issues, and taking out your road rage like this is gonna wind up with you behind bars. My pregnant sister expects me to support her family financially. My sister got pregnant with her boyfriend right out of high school, got married the next year, then proceeded to pop out another baby every year or two, so she now has 4 kids and she's 24 years old. She's a stay-at-home mom, even though she was brilliant and could have gotten a free ride to a great university. Since hers are the only grandkids, our parents fawn over her constantly. They gush over every new tooth or haircut like it's some sort of huge achievement. Problem is, her husband's business wasn't doing great even before lockdown and is barely limping along now. Sister doesn't work and my parents have limited income. So guess who constantly gets told to lend money to them for crap like school fees, car seats, car payments, new strollers, etc. They don't even ask. My mom just texts me, "Your sister needs money for the kids," and I'm supposed to cough it up. If I complain, they accuse me of being jealous because I don't have a husband and family, even though I'm older. I'm only 26. So over Easter, I notice my sister isn't drinking, and I think, oh no, here we go again. Sure enough, she stands up and announces that she's having yet another precious miracle. Everyone's gushing, and I just try to stay quiet and out of the way. Later, she asks me if everything is all right, and I try to play it off, but she pushes. So I asked her if she and her husband could really afford another baby. Very snippily, she replies, "God will provide like he has so far," which really ticked me off. I yelled that, no, actually, God didn't provide for her babies. I did, and I wasn't going to be giving them any more handouts. It devolved into a huge argument, and everyone shouted at me, and basically, I've been banned from my family unless I apologize. I haven't apologized. It's been a radio silence, except for one text from my mom saying that if my sister has issues with her pregnancy, then it's my fault for stressing her out. I asked if my sister was showing any symptoms, but no one will answer me or tell me. I don't know. I don't think I'm the jerk, but I don't want to be the reason that she has pregnancy issues. Karen divorces me and demands to still use my car. My ex-wife, who's 37 female, and I, 31 male, were together for almost 6 years and have 2 daughters, who are 5 and 7. She filed for divorce because she wasn't happy anymore with me, and we've now been divorced for almost 2 years. It was very difficult for me, especially not being able to see my daughters all the time, but we were able to arrange a 50-50 split custody agreement, and I also pay court-ordered child support since I earn significantly more than her. But looking back, I realized that divorce was the right decision, and the divorce has motivated me to pursue my career more and focus on my physical health. It has definitely paid off. I'm in the most comfortable position financially that I've ever been in and have been in the best shape of my life. So I guess in a way, the divorce was a start for me to reach my full potential. My ex-wife and I have a good co-parenting relationship, but nothing more. I've been doing great. So the last thing I want is to have my ex entangled in my life more than she already is. I only communicate with her about the kids and shut down any attempt of her trying to involve herself in my life that doesn't involve our kids. My ex recently called me and told me that she hasn't been doing great financially and that she has completely burned through her savings to pay rent and bills on her own to the point where she had to sell her car a few months ago. She said that she's been using public transportation to get to work and pick the kids up from school, which she says completely stresses her out because it's an almost 1-hour bus ride to her work, making her late a lot and having no time to properly do anything besides work and picking up and taking care of the kids when she has them. I currently own 2 cars, one that I use on a daily basis to go to work and run errands. I bought a more expensive car about a year ago, and I pretty much only use it when I'm going out on weekends or out on dates. Knowing that I have 2 cars, my ex asked me if she could use one of my cars to help her out so that she can have a life besides work and kids. I told her that her being able to have a life besides the kids has nothing to do with me and is not my responsibility. I told her that the kids are my only responsibility towards her and that anything else in her life is her problem since I'm not her husband anymore. She told me that I'm insensitive and that being terrible isn't going to lead to anything. I just told her that the financial security that I provide isn't something she has the right to anymore and that she has to deal with her own problems now. Am I the jerk? Edit. Everything our kids need is within walking distance of my ex's place. It's her job that requires her to take those hour-long bus rides. I'm not gonna leave a judgment, but you sound so bitter. Maybe get some therapy. She's the mother of your kids. Your job as a father should be to make their lives easier. You sound like a jerk, and I can only guess why she divorced you. You'd be helping your kids, which is what you should do. And be careful of alienating your kids from their mother because your bank account is larger. That would be considered mistreatment, and courts don't like that. Be a decent human being. I'll vote no jerks here, purely on technicality, because technically you're right. You don't have to let your ex borrow your car or let her have any more emotional space in your life beyond your kids, but I don't really understand how you don't see that your ex being miserable will have a negative impact on your kids. Your problems aren't mine is quite the ignorant notion towards someone who's raising your kids 50% of the time. There will always be an entanglement. Also, to me, it doesn't sound like you're being completely honest about being in a better place than when you were married. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so unempathetic towards your ex-wife. You're the jerk. You're not responsible for her, no, and I don't think you should give her your car or be responsible for her. But don't forget your kids here. Even if the situation is entirely because your wife is terrible, don't you want to be good to your kids? What you should be thinking here is, what can I do to make things better for my kids? Which may or may not involve you doing something for your ex. You can't say you're 50-50 parenting when you don't give a hoot about them the other 50% of the time. Have a grown-up conversation. How can you both parent your kids better? You're the jerk. This post comes across as very smug and cringy. You spent half the post talking yourself up. What has your fitness got to do with anything? Basically, she wounded your ego by leaving you, and now you get to lord it over her financially. I doubt many of these women you're pursuing would be very impressed if they knew the mother of your kids is struggling to survive, even more so that you have an extra car on the driveway whilst they have none. Do you want your daughters to look back at their childhood and remember the disparity in both your living situations? Lavishly at yours and scraping by at their mothers? Knowing that you go on expensive dates and have a flashy car to peacock them around in? Or do you want them to look back and remember you gave their mother a car so they could get to school and extra money so they could buy groceries? Personally, I'd choose the high road, but it's up to you. Not the jerk. Reverse the genders and everyone would be calling husband a bum and claiming wife should have full custody. Sorry Reddit is being so Reddit on you today. Congrats on improving your life. You deserve it. Am I the jerk for not removing the Disney items from my house? I'm 35, female. My husband, who's 38, and I are what you would call Disney adults. We used to work for the parks in college and met there. For us, it has sentimental value as well as being something we both loved from our childhood. Now, we are conscious to not be those Disney adults. We can hold conversations outside of the movies and parks. We both work well-paying jobs unrelated to the company. We have other hobbies and interests as well. Our son isn't big on Disney, and we're cool with that. It's just something that we enjoy, as well as our daughters. We nurture all of our kids' hobbies and interests. We also don't blow all of our money on this stuff. I know I may sound overly defensive, but we get a lot of comments from people who don't know us well. Anyway, we live in a renovated farmhouse on a bit of land that includes a barn that we finished off with hopes to make it a guest house one day. In the meanwhile, we've had a relative get married here and it was gorgeous. Now my sister, who's 28, wants to get married on our property and we were all for it. Everything's been planned for months and the wedding is in June. It's set to be outside completely, but if it rains, we can move the party into the barn. The only reason a guest would have to go in our house is to use the bathroom. We have 2 on the first floor. The only Disney items are Winnie the Pooh hand towels. I told my sister I'd replace them with regular ones. Wedding space has no Disney items. However, she wants me to take down everything Disney on the first floor of my home, as guests will see it. We have a lot of Disney items: pictures, paintings, blankets, Funko Pops, decorations, figurines, dishware, etc. And a lot of it is subtle or vintage, but you can still tell it's Disney. 1. This would be a massive undertaking. It's not as simple as shoving stuff in a closet. We'd have to pack it up and find a place to store it. The sheer amount would require at least 2 hours of packing, not to mention storage and unpacking after. 2. It's ridiculous to me. Who cares if people see? She says it looks tacky and she doesn't want people to remember her wedding for that. I told her no. We're decorating the outside and barn as she wants. We're letting her use our property for free, which she keeps bragging about to friends as it's saving them a ton. When my husband and I stood firm, she whined to our parents, who told us to grow up and take it down. Not the jerk. Your sister doesn't want her wedding to be associated with Disney? Your sister wants full control of the space and decoration. I have an idea. She should rent her own venue. Seriously, enforce your boundaries and say that's as far as you're willing to go. If she wants to change everything, she needs to rent a different venue. She wanted to get married at your property. She knows you have a lot of Disney items. She can take it or leave it, especially as said items are in an area restricted from guests. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. She's making unreasonable demands on your home. Who cares if you decorated your home with Disney, dinosaurs, or duckies? It's your home. You're already doing her a huge favor by letting her use the barn and property for free. She's being a choosing beggar right now. If the Disney decorations are that much of a bother to her, then maybe she should find a new location, though I'm sure she wouldn't want that because other venues won't be free or so accommodating to her demands. You refuse to recheck our scores? Fine. Have fun with unemployment. Context. I've been working in this health insurance company for the past 3 years. I recently took another position with better hours and pay, but this time it was to coordinate appointments with doctors and specialists. My metrics were always great, and the reason I was selected for the new position was due to my metrics. This has been brewing since October of 22. We used to have a coworker, let's call her Karen. Karen is this older lady that thinks she knows it all. Everything she says is right, and she often blames everything on other people. Typical Karen activities. The first time I interacted with her was back in October when I messaged her via our work chat because she messed up prior authorization for a patient and the MD office was calling to have the person that created the authorization fix the issue. The conversation went like this. Me. Hi, good morning. I have an MD office calling requesting to speak to you in regards to a prior authorization that looks incomplete. Karen. And you couldn't help them? This is a call center. You're supposed to help. And I don't even know who that MD is. Me. You're correct, this is a call center. However, you created the authorization, and as you know, I can't fix authorizations that weren't created by me. And also, they would like to speak to you specifically. I also provided her the patient record number and the MD office phone number. Karen. Well, I'm not available to talk to them. Okay. I went back to the call, and I specifically told the MD what she said, including that she's not available to talk, but hopefully she will call them back to fix the issue. I also sent a message to my direct supervisor with a screenshot of our conversation, and I simply said, this is unprofessional, especially in an environment like ours. Fast forward to the start of the year, and Karen took a position with our quality assurance department due to them being understaffed. I used to work in the quality assurance department, and I knew the ins and outs and knew she would be assigned to our department since she already had experience. Context. Our quality assurance gives us scores from 100, and if we miss something, we get points deducted. Example, miss HIPAA, minus 20 points. Inaccurate info, minus 10 points. Don't advise people for our survey, minus 5, etc. Come January, we get our first bad score in 3 years of the company. It was a 56%. I was astonished because this is the first time I had been given a bad score. But I also make sure the score was correct. Our company gives us the choice to listen to our calls just to be sure or just in case the quality agent made a mistake. I listened to my call and I did everything right. I completed the information, provided good service, and I asked if the patient needed assistance with anything else and provided closing script. On the quality note, it was stated that I didn't offer any help and that I didn't even complete HIPAA. I sent it to my supervisor and he stated that when I offered the closing script, the patient asked something and I replied and disconnected the call. Okay. I still said the closing script and his question and my answer lasted literally 5 seconds. My supervisor still went to her and managed to fix the score to 95% because she felt like I didn't provide a survey. If anyone's worked in a call center, you know that metrics are everything, and one bad metric will quickly not get you your monthly bonuses, and on top of that, management will go off on us because if we don't achieve the metrics, they also don't get their bonuses. I took screenshots of our conversation, saved it in a file, then I sent it to my personal email since I know our IT department is known for deleting anything that's not a working system or appropriate. Fast forward 3 days ago, April 18th. I had received several scores ranging from 85% to 80% and only one 100% score. The 100 score, I received it because Karen wasn't the one who audited my call and the other person found everything all right. But the 85 looked fishy since the first thing you see is the patient name. I quickly remembered the call because the person was funny and I enjoyed the call. I listened to the call and of course I did everything perfectly. However, Karen put on the system that she deducted 10 points for not telling the patient that he had a copay for the visit and another 5 points for extending the call. What? I contacted my supervisor and let him know of what happened. However, I didn't receive a response. I was confused, so I sent a message to a coworker who told me they've been having the same issue with Karen, with inaccurate audits and the department not achieving their monthly goals due to it. Since my supervisor didn't reply, I did what everyone does when management doesn't reply. I messaged Karen, and I sent her a message that just said, "Hey, I have some inaccurate audits and I'd like to know if you could recheck them since I listened to the calls and everything was done perfectly." The reply I received was, "All audit scores are final and it cannot be appealed." I knew it was a lie since I worked with quality before and I knew that it could be changed. I replied, "You know I worked in that department for 1 year and I know it can be rechecked and reversed, right?" Karen said, "Your previous position is irrelevant in this matter. If you don't like the score, you can go ahead and submit a complaint to my supervisor." I replied, "Okay, have a good day," knowing that her supervisor knows me really well. Cue malicious compliance. I didn't just create one formal complaint, I created one complaint for each time she scored me incorrectly. Not only that, but I also told my 19 coworkers what she said and advised them that if they would like their scores overturned and rechecked, they could send a complaint to her supervisor, but only to send one complaint per bad score. Also, to let you guys know, we don't get one audit a month. No, we get audited 10 times per month. In the span of 24 hours, her supervisor must have received around 200 complaints from our department complaining for one person, Karen. The first complaint was mine, with Karen's conversation saying that all decisions are final and she can't recheck or overturn, and also saying to submit a complaint to her supervisor. Her supervisor sent me a message saying that they will evaluate all of the complaints and scores and we will be receiving a message. That was on Monday, April 17th. Tuesday, we didn't get any messages. Wednesday, I couldn't go to work due to my illness. But today, April 20th, I received a message from her supervisor stating that my scores had been reviewed and properly scored, and also stating that my supervisor will be under investigation because any complaint should be submitted to his manager, and he never submitted anything, and that the employee has been terminated. But the best part is logging into our chat and seeing Karen's profile with no pictures, and instead of her name, it only said unknown user. The morale of our group is better, and I hope we don't have issues again. Am I the jerk for selling my daughter's car? I, 56 male, have a son who's 28 and a daughter who's 22. I like both of my kids equally. However, they are different individuals with different lives, so I help them based on their needs. My son did not do well in high school and went to a community college and decided it was not for him after a semester and went to trade school and eventually settled on HVAC. He had issues sticking to things, so as a reward, when he became certified in HVAC, I bought him a brand new truck as a gift. My daughter got into a good college out of state and was always more academically minded. When she was about to finish high school, it came to a surprise to me that she had taken it for granted that I would also get her a new car, even though I never said that. I explained that there would be no need for a college girl in a big city to have a car. She then asked if I could help with tuition. I did not pay for trade school either, so I declined. Eventually, she seemed down, so I offered to buy a used car in my name, and she could use it for a while until I decided to sell it, but she would have to maintain it. She seemed really happy with that, so we got an old '99 BMW for really cheap. The body was in good condition, but the engine and transmission needed work, and it needed painting. She did the essential fixes first, but then slowly did unnecessary ones, even though I never asked for that, and repainted most of the car and had the interior detailed. When she came back for a visit this week after finishing her finals, I decided it was time to sell the car and listed it. She seems upset with me, even though we had agreed to it, and I never asked her to repaint the car. She said she thought I was going to sell it much later when it rusted or something. She also says I can sell it more expensive because of her fixes, but the reality is I got the car just before lockdown, and used cars cost a lot more since, and that's why I cannot sell it for more. I offered to pay her back for half of the paint work. Am I the jerk here? Edit. Okay, seems people think it was wrong, but my son only got the truck after schooling, and my daughter has not finished school yet. I have not thought of her graduation gift yet, but the car is only listed, and I will think about it and reconsider. Edit 2. Okay, I'll let her keep it and delist it for now. My plan was always to sell it, as I feel like 90s BMWs in good shape are desirable, but she seems attached to the car now. Okay, so your son gets an expensive new truck and your daughter got an old used car? Paid for the repairs on the car herself? So you see nothing wrong with punishing success and rewarding failure? You're the jerk. Edit. For all the comments I'm getting, I never said HVAC was failing. Bribing the son to finish is. This post makes me so sad. Of course you're the jerk. And helping based on their needs is you knowing that you're favoring your son and treating your daughter horribly. You bought a car really cheap, then your daughter paid for the engine and transmission work, painted it, detailed it, and maintained it, and now you want to sell her car? After you bought your son a brand new truck? I would never speak to you again. Wow, you're the jerk. It's like you're punishing her for her success or something. And to pay for only half the paint, etc., after she paid for all of the essential fixes too? Yes, you're the jerk. Am I the jerk for saying, wow, I don't like you, to my friend's boyfriend? This happened a few weeks ago, and I probably am the jerk, so I came here to check. I was at the mall with my best friend when another friend, let's call her S, noticed us and invited us over. S was with her boyfriend at the time and wanted to introduce us, and since we enjoy meeting new people, we obliged. It did not take long before we realized that her boyfriend was, let's just say, strange. He refused to talk to us, giving one-word responses to everything, and when the topic went towards things we enjoyed or liked, he'd just go, I don't care. It was disheartening to say the least. I try my best generally to include everyone in a conversation, but he honestly refused to participate even when the topic was his interests or relationship with S. The thing that really broke the camel's back, for me at least, was that he made S talk for him, and not in a, I don't know what to say, so please take the reins way, but in an almost, they are beneath me way. S tried her best to accommodate, but there were things she couldn't respond to, like what were boyfriend's favorite video games and stuff like that. After around 30 minutes of trying to either ignore boyfriend and discuss other things or let him speak only for him to refuse to, I just didn't care anymore and went, wow, I don't like you. And he once again just ignored everyone, even when S tried to defend him. The whole thing ended up just being awkward, and afterwards, S didn't talk to me as much. It all came to a head at my best friend's birthday when S tried to confront me and said I was a jerk for being mean to her boyfriend. I was most likely rude, I agree, though I genuinely was out of things to say at that point. So, am I the jerk? Edit. I spoke to S and friend, and from what we know, the boyfriend is not autistic. Me, S, and friend are diagnosed with ASD, but if boyfriend is, he isn't diagnosed or doesn't know it. Also, we are all adults, since people asked. Not the jerk. Sometimes people just don't like each other. At least you are honest. I'd give him a pass for social anxiety or something akin to that. But I don't care is a horrific response to someone trying to befriend you. Not the jerk. Sometimes you just have to call a spade a spade. S is just blind because she likes him. Who knows why? You are more objective. You tried to be nice and engaged him into conversation, but he acted like a giant jerk. Might as well say the truth than being forced to spend time with him again. Honestly, everyone sucks here. You really didn't have to say anything to a person you've just met. You could have just ended the conversation and moved on. He didn't have to act like a jerk, but it kind of seems to me that he didn't want to talk to you from the beginning. Like the two of them were likely on a date. He was intending to have some personal time with his girlfriend and was super not excited when there were suddenly other people involved. And if my assumptions are correct, then S also sucks for inviting you to join them in the first place. I agree, this is probably what was going on. He didn't sign up to spend half an hour being interrogated by girlfriend's friends. He was just trying to enjoy a date. But that's life. People might join in a social setting or a group that you're part of who you don't know. Unless they're being obnoxious, you be polite and converse with them. Don't be so obtuse to think it's socially acceptable to sit and huff and be blatantly rude towards them because you don't want them there or you don't know them. You're the jerk. Dude was on a date and you wouldn't stop interrogating him. Why do you need to ask him what his favorite video game is? If someone isn't in the mood to talk to you, then you accept that instead of rudely telling them that you don't like them. The world does not revolve around you, and you do not get to demand that someone talk to you. He wanted to be with his girlfriend, not you, and you crashed their date. Am I the jerk for letting my husband leave and ruining mother-in-law's family photos? I, 27 female, have been married to my husband, 29 male, for 5 years. My husband has a big family, 4 sisters and a brother, and they are all very close. Sister-in-laws visit mother-in-law at least once a week and help out with things like house cleaning and gardening. We visit them a couple times a month, and my mother-in-law calls my husband at least twice a week. I've never really had a problem with my in-laws other than mother-in-law and grandmother-in-law being a bit cold to me when we got engaged because they wanted my husband to settle down with someone who was Korean. But I like to think that they've warmed up to me. So today we went over to my mother-in-law's house since we were told the whole family would be there for a nice dinner. We dressed up, as mother-in-law expects when she says it will be a nice get-together. We were visiting with his siblings and their spouses, but mother-in-law announced that she had a photographer coming over and she wanted to do family photos in the garden. We were taken aback as we hadn't been told about any photos, but we went with it. It's not unusual for mother-in-law to spring things on us. So we socialized until the photographer got there. Then everyone started going out back to get ready for the photos. Mother-in-law asked to speak to me for a moment, so my husband went out without me. I figured she'd tell me to change my hair or take off my lipstick, as it's common for her to micromanage my appearance. Instead, she told me she wanted me to wait inside. I was taken aback and asked if it was just going to be the immediate family. She said no, she was going to hang these up in her house and wanted to make sure they gave off a good image. I asked her what that meant, and she said she wanted the pictures to have serious family members in it, and I should just wait inside. I just nodded and left for the bathroom before I started crying. Sister-in-law, too, had brought her boyfriend of 7 months, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, 4, had brought their spouses of 4 and 2 years, who I assumed were going to be in the pictures. I tried to hold it together in the bathroom. After about 10 minutes, I heard my husband calling for me. I come out to find him storming through the house, mother-in-law chasing after him with sister-in-law 1, both shouting in Korean, and we left with his mother yelling at us. He didn't talk on the way home. He shuts down when he's angry, so I don't know what happened. But my sister-in-laws and mother-in-law are messaging me that I ruined the family photos and that I've broken my mother-in-law's heart as she was dreaming of these photos of her beloved kids. Even my youngest sister-in-law, who's usually chummy with me, is saying I should have convinced my husband to go back. I don't know what to do. I've tried so hard to get them to like me. Her not wanting me in the photos hurt, but maybe I should have told him to just finish the photos. I did nothing to try and stop him, and I feel bad that I was just crying like a baby and couldn't even talk to my husband. Am I the jerk for crying and letting my husband just leave? Not the jerk. His mother is a real jerk, and good on him for getting upset about it. Though he should work on communicating better with you when he's upset, that said, he should be upset. His mother was belittling you. His family is basically saying, "We told you that you suck, that we don't like you, and we're complete jerks to you. But it's all your fault because you didn't tell him to stay after he got mad at us for being jerks." The Mouse Story. It was autumn 2019, shortly after the first frost, and our cat brings us a mouse. We take a picture and report to maintenance. They check out the apartment, see no mouse droppings, set a trap, and tell us to let them know if it happens again. A few nights later, we get another mouse. And then the next night, we get 2 more mice. We call maintenance. They claim to have found the issue behind the stove. They patch it and leave. We get another mouse. They claim there's an issue by our washer, dryer, and they patch that. Then there are more mice. We request a professional exterminator daily, and they refuse. Eventually, maintenance gets sick of our calls. We never got a mouse in our trap, and there's no mouse droppings. The only evidence of mice is our pictures of 16 mice with our cat over time. So the maintenance guy comes over with a clever idea. He says next time we get a mouse, we need to keep it and bring it to the main office. They can study it and figure out where it's coming from. My husband and I are well educated and know that's just not how mice work. The landlord doesn't want to pay an exterminator, and they don't believe the issue is as bad as it is. It's time for a little malicious compliance. A night or two later, we get a mouse. We put it in a garbage can in the tub until morning. Unfortunately, the little guy doesn't make it through the night. In the morning, we bag our friend and head up to the leasing building. The apartment manager is there, as are several families waiting to begin a tour of the complex. We explain to our landlord about the now 17 mice and how we're now supposed to personally deliver each mouse to her. She looks at my husband, horrified, grabs her cell phone, and heads to a back room. We can hear her screaming at the maintenance guy about his request. In the meantime, we're explaining to her potential tenants the issues we've been facing. A couple minutes later, she returns, tosses the mouse in the garbage, and says they'll be paying a professional exterminator to take a look at the building. The exterminator found hundreds of entry points, which get taken care of. That was the last mouse we ever had in that apartment. Throw your trash in my yard? Enjoy moving. My now ex-neighbor was pretty trashy. Cars sitting on blocks in the yard, cigarettes hanging out of her mouth while she was pregnant, and blasting Kid Rock. Well, this lady decided that paying $1 per trash bag was just too much. Our township will only pick up your trash if it is in one of the approved purple bags though, so normal trash bags will just be left behind. The trash truck drives right past them. Her solution? Buy normal trash bags at the dollar store and have her 8-year-old toss them over the fence into my yard. Now their trash is my problem. After confronting her, she just laughed, so I called the cops. They said that since the kid was so young and there was no proof his parents told him to do it, there was nothing that they could do. So this went on for about 4 months. Me taking the bags of trash they toss into my yard, wrapping them in purple bags that I paid out of pocket for, and putting them out to the curb. Pretty annoying. Not to mention the extra $3 or so a week I'm spending on trash bags. I'm slowly growing to hate this lady. It was annoying at first, but I was getting mad. Mind you, I own my home and she was just renting hers. So I get a hold of their landlord and I offer to buy the house for a decent amount above market value, 17%. He jumps at the offer, and soon I'm the proud owner of the house next door to me. Sure, it cost me $71,000, but what price do you put on peace of mind? The very first thing I did was serve them an eviction notice, in person, across the same fence that they like to throw trash over. That was 31 days ago. As of today, the unit is empty. I don't know where they went, but they're someone else's problem now. All because she didn't want to pay for her own trash bags. I think I'm going to knock that house down and make my yard bigger. I've been wanting to put in a handball court. Note for the profile stalkers, this is not the same neighbor with the husky. I like those neighbors. Am I the jerk for exposing my ex to his mother? I, 45 female, am currently divorced from my ex, Thomas, 47 male, of 30 years. We ended up seeing a lawyer to help with dividing stuff. Everything was pretty much wrapped up till he said he no longer wanted any part of our kids' lives, who are 5 and 12. I didn't argue with him about it since I already know what it's like having a parent who doesn't want you around or want to be part of your life. I asked what he wanted me to tell the kids, and he just said, "Whatever you think is best, I don't care. I don't want to be a parent anymore." Everything was in agreement and signed with no fuss. A few weeks later, I get a call from my ex-mother-in-law asking if we could meet each other. When I came over, she broke down crying and begging to let my ex see his kids again. I was confused about what she meant because not once did he contact me after meeting the lawyer. She went on about how my ex said he really missed them and that I was being a petty jerk for taking full custody and that he was crying for days about it. I told her my version of events and she called it BS, saying her son wouldn't lie, especially not about his kids. Then I decided to call him in front of her. He didn't know she and I were meeting that day. I said, "Hey, your son has a soccer game in a few days," which he did, and I was wondering if you wanted to go. I know he'd really love it and he'd be happy to see you. He instantly said, "No, I already said I'm not doing this anymore." I raised my voice a bit, saying, "Well, what about holidays and birthdays? Because we never discussed any of it, and your family might want to see them." He just said, "My family already thinks they aren't mine anyways, so it doesn't matter." I asked, "Well, how do you think this is going to affect Denise, his mom? She's over the moon about them." He just said, "She loves me more than the kids, so I doubt this will be an issue for her." After a bit more talking, we finally hung up. Ex-mother-in-law was straight-faced and nodded at everything that just happened, saying, okay." She asked me to leave and said we would be in touch. Later that day, I got a call from my ex saying how it's my fault he was kicked out of his mom's house and possibly will be taken off her will. Also, that none of his family members will talk to him because of what ex-mother-in-law heard. He threw a lot of insults at me before I hung up, and now him and his mates keep calling and texting me. My friend is saying I shouldn't have said anything in the first place and I ruined his life. Edit. Yes, I plan to let Denise see the kids because I know she just wants to give them the world along with the rest of his family. Second edit. I want to address something because this keeps coming up and I can't keep up with everyone. Due to actions he and I took when we were younger, my Christian parents thought it would be best he and I be married at the time. Not the jerk. He had the right to sign off his rights. He did not have the right to paint you in a bad light and make you look to be at fault and evil or manipulative. That's defamation of character. You had the right to set the record straight. His mom had the right to go no contact with her son, a grown man who didn't want contact with his actual kids. Sounds like he's getting a taste of his own medicine, aka karma. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.